Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Now I'm in a better place.
So what was the decision to jump into the podcasting arena? Not enough podcasts in the world?
Well, that was certainly one. It is the law. No, it was a bunch of things. First of all, if you had said to me, Chen, when did you start? 2009?
Yeah.
And what year did you become the king of podcasting?
5 years ago, probably.
5 years ago, okay. So if you said to me 10 years ago, podcasting is going to be huge. It's really going to be where media moves. It's where people are. It's going to be bigger than radio at its height. I'd say, are you crazy? But partly because of you, it did, and so it's sort of undeniable now. And I also was out to dinner too many times with people who said, you're so interesting to talk to when it's not about politics. You should do a podcast that's not about politics. And I was always saying, well, first of all, my network would never let me do that. They own my ass. They pay me very well for exclusivity. But I found out that actually, you know what? I can, if I ask nicely, and they were nice about it, and do it in a very different way, which is what we did. I could do a podcast and have it not be about politics. And it's a whole new audience because there's just a lot of people who are turned off to politics and don't want to talk about politics and don't want to hear about it. And sometimes I'm that guy. Sometimes I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
And there's too many people who are divorced from, shall we say, knowing things. I had this.
That's a great way to put it. Divorce from knowing things is a great way to put it.
I mean, they're still. They're not. I'm not saying they're dumb. Not at all. They're just. I had this a guy on. We hadn't dropped yet, and I said to him. He asked me sort of the same question. Why are you doing this podcast? And I was going through this very similar explanation. I said, for example, on Real Time last week, the two topics we talked about were the ACLU and NATO. And he's 30, and he said, yeah, I don't know what either one of those are. I said, exactly. This is the problem. Or the solution is that we can have this nice conversation. You're a bright guy, but I can't, you would not be that interested in Real Time because even though it's a comedy show and there's a lot of funny stuff that, anybody could laugh at, yeah, when it comes to the panel discussion, it was mostly about NATO and the ACLU. Whereas this show, the podcast, it's just about anything. It's just much more personal. And, I can be dressed like this. I'm not the guy in the suit and the tie and the white shirt with perfect hair. And I can just, and also I can, like we're doing here, be much more free would be the word I would say. Before we had to dance around the fact that, no, we can get baked. We can drink and we can smoke and which is what we would do normally. And I felt like, there's not a lot of podcasts that have a nighttime feel. And I had a place in my house that was perfect for that. And we kind of made it into a club. We called it Club Random. And I said, I get high with people here anyway, one night a week, just having fun. If I just turned the cameras on, we'd have a fucking show.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great that HBO is wise enough to let you do that too, because I think it'd only enhance your show. Well, it's not going to take away from it.
We already have from the commentary from when people write in to YouTube and so forth saying, "Oh, I'm going to take a look at Real Time now."
Yeah,
and that was part of my argument was if you want to get anyone under 40 who don't follow politics that well, you're going to have to fish somewhere else than where you've been fishing.
Yeah,
and when you do fish in this new pond, you will get people who will come over to your pond.
Well, I think one of the things that opened up a lot of people to your show during the pandemic especially was these clips that you guys were putting up. And I think that having those kind of clips, those kind of, viral clips of some of your monologues and some of your rants, I think those opened up a lot of younger people to it as well.
Yeah. I mean, well, of course,
same kind of thing, like using an alternative media.
Yes. And of course, nowadays we live in a time when people digest things not necessarily in the form that they were made. They get little clips. I mean, James Corden does singing in a car with people, the karaoke.
Right.
A lot of people see that much more than who stay up till 12:30 and watch that whole show through their toes like they used to Johnny Carson and sit through commercials. I mean, I honestly don't know how those shows still last in the year 2022. Who would sit there and watch commercials that take up probably 30% of the show, but I guess it still must work.
There's something there still, but it's a trap format. You know, those kind of trap formats that only appear at a certain time, and they're only good for a certain amount of, minutes before they have to cut the commercial. It's just so limiting. There's so,
It seems an anachronism to me in this day and age. But, I do a show that it has no commercials. That's the difference. You can watch it all the way through.
Yeah.
But I certainly know that people atomize it, rather. They just want to watch the rant I do at the end, or they just want to watch the monologue or the comedy bit or a certain guest. I mean, I had Mamet on. I know you had Mamet on this week. Boy, he really wants to sell that book.
He's an interesting guy.
I love him.
Fascinating guy. You would never know who he is until you sit down and talk to him, but just by his work.
Well, I mean, I said to him, "You're a lot funnier than people know." His reputation is the tough guy, fuck this, and really, he's very funny.
Yeah.
I saw a play he wrote in New York in 2008 called November. It was a political thing, but it was just like a one laugh after another. It was just. I said to him, it's like a Neil Simon play if Neil Simon had ever been funny.
Yeah.
And just people really laughing in the theater every 30 seconds. Laugh, 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 laugh. That is not how people think of David Mamet. And, his book I read, it's fantastic. I mean, I don't agree with every single thing in it, but there is a certain type of person, and he is one of them, that just has this breadth of knowledge that comics like us, as much as we might try and try to stay up and read, we're just not in that league. And it's like I couldn't play basketball with the Lakers either. There are just people like that. Salman Rushdie, people who are they've read everything, they know everything. And so when they write a book like that, they're very often making references to things I know. Oh, I know that name.
Yeah.
And then you tell me something, oh, I didn't know that about it. Oh, I didn't know that.
Right.
And it's just it's almost like the cliff notes for being a true intellectual.
Yeah, there's some stunningly well-read people out there. And when you talk to them on a podcast, you realize, I would have never known there's people like you if I wasn't talking to you.
Right. Exactly. And I'm so glad that they can read everything, because I just don't have that. George Will is another one who just has this. I mean, he's 80, and he still writes these amazing columns every week that, again, do I always agree with every word? No, but every word is a fantastic word. I mean, the way he can put together sentences, and he must do it not quite on the fly, but with this, amazing output of, I would say, at least 2 or 3 times a week he produces this column. And then books. I had him on like a year ago for a doorstop. It was like this. It was 6 inches thick, and it was like a compendium of everything that you'd ever want to know about conservatism in America. I was like, wow, I just don't, that's not my brain. And I don't even wish it was, because I don't think I'd be as happy.
No. Well, we need you, and we need him too. This is why we need a lot of different kinds of people.
And you.
Yeah, you're not going to be that guy and also be a great stand-up.
No.
Right. You don't have the time. You can't do everything. You don't necessarily. But I think one of the things you said that's so important is I don't agree with everything they say. That's I don't agree with a lot of things a lot of people say, but I still want to hear them talk.
Absolutely.
That's what's missing today. The polarization in this country, and I think a lot of it accentuated by the relationship that people had with Trump. It turned people into this, you're 1 or 0. You're with us or against us. And I think that's bonkers.
No, it is. I mean, it's funny. For the first time in my life, I'm really getting a mixed audience at stand-up shows.
Nice.
Mixed, I'm talking about politically.
Yeah.
That really doesn't happen anymore in America. Maybe it happens to you somewhat.
I get it for sure. I get blue hairs and cowboy hats. I get all kinds of weirdos that come.
Right. But you get I'm talking about liberal Democrats
Yeah.
plus conservative Republicans.
They're weird. It's a weird mingling sometimes when I meet them out in public.
Right.
Sometimes it's like old ladies. That one freaks me out.
Well, I think that's because we are both seen as people who are sort of like commonsensical. And that is what there is a hunger for, I think, in America more than anything, is common sense.
Yes.
Away from the extremes. I mean, when people say to me, don't you think you've gotten more conservative? No, I haven't. The left has gotten goofier.
Yes.
So I seem more conservative, maybe, but like, it's not me who changed.
Yes.
I feel I'm the same guy, but 5 years ago, we hadn't spent $6 trillion to stay home. I mean, I understand we had to do something with the pandemic. I'm not sure that was, I remember when $1 trillion was too much to spend on anything. We didn't spend $1 trillion to bail out the economy in 2008. So we didn't do that. 5 years ago, no one was talking about abolishing the police. There was no talk about, pregnant men. And, I mean, there was just looting was still illegal.
Right. Isn't that crazy?
So like, have I changed? No, because if someone had said 20 years ago, I'm not sure looting is a bad thing, I would have opposed it then. See, so I haven't changed. But that, I think, is what there is this hunger for, is this sort of common sense. Centrism is such a wishy-washy word, but that's sort of what it is. Some people lean a little more to the left, a little more to the right. Sometimes it's issue by issue. But just, I'm always saying to the Democrats, just don't be the party of no common sense. And you will be surprised at how much amazing success you will have, as opposed to what's going to happen, which is they're going to get their ass kicked in November.
Well, people like you are very important to people like me because you represent what it means to me to be liberal, what it means to me to be left-wing, because you're just a normal person who cares about people's rights and wants a certain amount of freedom and wants people to get along and work things out amicably.
Right.
But the polarization of this country has made it so that people like you are rare. It's weird. It's like that's what I used to think of when I thought of the left. I thought of like professors and intellectuals and these people that would sit down and work through things with the understanding that free speech is like one of the most important aspects of communication possible, and communication is everything. Communication is how we work things out. Like this idea of not talking to people you disagree with. Well, guess what? That just galvanizes them. They just get hardened and they move further and further away, and we get more and more associated with this idea of left and right and good and bad and 1 and 0, and this side does not agree with anything that side says. That's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. And if you're out there doing it, it gives people hope. And it's not just what you're saying, common sense. You do have common sense. But more importantly, you have courage. Because courage allows you to speak your mind, whether you're right or wrong. Courage allows you to take a chance. And you're seeing the wave of people that are moving in a certain direction. It doesn't necessarily make sense. And you're like, hey, what the fuck is going on? And everybody's like, finally, someone's saying it on TV. Right. Because maybe someone said it at a cocktail party. Maybe someone said it at a barbecue. But they're not fucking saying it on HBO until you say it on HBO.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean,
it means a lot.
I always say, there's levels of courage. There's like, I will take that compliment as long as I can also say, but there's like Marines level.
Yeah, you're not a Navy SEAL. Absolutely.
No, exactly.
You're not even a woman about to give birth.
I'm in the D League.
Yes.
In the D League, I have a lot of courage, but I'm not playing in the upper league.
What you have is honesty.
But thank you. Yes.
You have honesty, and people know that, and that's why your show works.
And that's also, I always feel like what my bond with the audience is.
Yes.
Like you don't have. When I started way back on Politically Incorrect, almost 30 years ago, people said, this show will never work because a TV host can never reveal his politics. I mean, Johnny Carson never did. Leno didn't. David Letterman. They never said, I'm voting for this guy. Whereas I mean, you obviously know who all the late night hosts are for now.
Right.
I mean, it's a completely one-sided thing. They have to pander to the liberal audience, which just watches them. It's so reverse of when I started.
It's bonkers.
When you couldn't be political, and now you couldn't survive apparently in late night television unless you are political, unless the audience knows exactly that you're, and I would put Saturday Night Live in this too. It's, I think Elon Musk took them to task. He said it doesn't seem like a show that's about comedy anymore so much as it is about declaring some woke doctrine.
Yeah.
And, having the people who go to those shows and are in I guess, where they film them and stuff. My audience was too doctrinated for a while. We have a much better audience now because we kind of got rid of the groaners, the people for whom I was always too politically incorrect. And I was like, I've been doing this forever. The names of the shows, politically incorrect, real time. And you still come to this show and groan when I say something too real? What fucking show did you think you were coming to? Because they do film The Price is Right in the same studio.
Do you think that the way it's going right now with late night television, where everyone has to be political, is that what the audience wants, or is that what the executives in the studio wants? Are they are they one step behind? Like where is the mandate coming from? Is it the person who's the host who says, you know what I know works in this town, if I want to keep working, I have to be like outwardly left-leaning, progressive, political?
Look, I think it's coming from both, because corporations in America now
they're leaning in.
Or what?
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified
Yeah.
of some kind of backlash. I mean, you see with Disney now. I mean, Disney, one of the most gay-friendly companies that we've had in a very long time, as they should be. All companies should be gay-friendly. But Disney they had gay days at Disney, what is it, World, Land? I don't know. I'm not at Disney.
I think it was the LA one, right?
You'll never find
I think
me
it's
in
Land.
Disneyland is the original. That's right.
That's
Disney
LA.
World is in Florida.
Right.
You'll never find me sitting in a teacup, Joe. Okay, so
I love teacups.
I mean, this is in my category of things that only children used to do that now adults do. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time somebody said, I'm going to Disneyland, and I'm like, with your kids? No, we're just going. Okay. But, there is that. There is corporations, I think, yes, are always going to want to. And look, I'm glad they are progressive thinking. Of course, like with everything on the left these days, they just take it too far. But I think it's coming from the audience more, because the audience who goes to a taping of Saturday Night Live or a show like that, they're youngish, and they believe what they believe. A lot of the things I also believe. But it's sort of an unexamined, like, they don't know too much about politics. They just know that, and again, you mentioned Trump doing this. Like, he was so awful that it's just very easy to turn off to the details and go, well, I'm with the Democrats and the left.
He was so polarizing that if you supported him,
Right.
you weren't supporting his policies at all. You were supporting the personality. It was more, right?
It's also, I mean, from my point of view, the Republicans, they don't believe in climate change and the emergency of that.
Is that a generalization?
That's pretty true.
Is they all
The
of them don't believe in
Republicans,
climate change?
well, they certainly don't act like they do.
What do they believe if they don't believe in climate change?
They for years they put up one bullshit talking point after another that they knew was false. Like, they would get a hold of a Newsweek from 1982 that had a cover story that said the Earth is cooling. Oh, look, the Earth is cooling for now it's heating. Well, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Or they would take one data point on the timeline, like there was because it doesn't go in a straight line, climate, if you measure it year by year, but we see the trend. So they would take like 1998, I think, was a year when it was exceptionally hot. and then it went down again. And so look at the line, and you can draw a graph to make it look like it is. If you don't think it's happening and it's an emergency, now what we do about it is a different story. But for years they just denied it. They went right from denying it to, okay, well, it's happening, but now it's too late. So look, we are all just going to enjoy it. I've said it many times. America and the world in general has decided we are Thelma and Louise. We're holding hands and we're just driving off the Grand Canyon. And as long as we're doing that, I'm not going to be the only one who's not having a good time with the Earth. But, anyway, my point was they don't believe in really what emergency that is, and they also don't really believe in democracy anymore. So I do think the Republicans at this moment are worse. I think they've always been worse and completely unsavable unless they switch on that. Whereas the Democrats, I think, are savable, even though they're so fucking goofy. And when people say, you never used to make fun of the left as much, because they didn't give me the material. And now they're so ridiculous on so many things that as a comedian, of course, I'm going to go where the material is.
Isn't it fascinating that the warming of the actual planet itself became so political and so polarizing? That if you're a person, for example, if you're a person on the left, you basically, I think most people on the left believe in a woman's right to choose. Most people believe in abortion rights.
Right.
Whereas if you think about the environment, that's one of those ones. If you tell me you don't believe that the earth is warming, I go, oh, it's a right-wing guy. I wonder if he's one of them hardcore Ayn Rand right-wing guys. What kind of right-wing guys? Is he? Immediately, though, if you don't believe in climate change, I assume you're just on the right. But I've talked to a lot of people that are on the left that don't believe in it either.
Really?
Yeah.
Like who?
Not that they don't believe in it, but they believe that there's this long. It's a fascinating conversation because I honestly don't have an opinion. Other than it's dangerous if the Earth warms. I don't have an opinion about the science of it.
I mean, it's not an opinion, and it's not something you believe in. It's not a religion.
Of course, it's science.
It's a real scientific fact. And
right, but what I'm saying is we've had two different people come on that analyze the science from two very different viewpoints, and they both had incredibly compelling points.
No, you can. I mean, there are things that the left should hear about the climate that they wouldn't know. George Will writes about it often. That are true things. But they don't, at the end of the day, change the basic theme here, which is that the Earth is warming. That probably isn't good. It's coming from man. I mean, it's not just – there are cycles, of course, in weather and climate in the Earth, but this is something different. Those cycles happen too. And look, maybe somebody will come along and invent some great machine that
sucks the carbon out.
Absolutely, or some shit like that. I hope they do, because if they don't, we're fucked, because no one's really going to do anything about it. We're just not equipped to handle problems that happen slowly.
Right.
And, we're the proverbial frog in the boiling pot. And the thing, we are hooked on convenience. I mean, I did a thing on my show one night about little Greta from Sweden, the teenager who's always, what's her name, Greta
Thunberg, yeah.
Okay, so
how dare you, that girl,
little Greta, with the scowl on her face, and I showed that she had 11 million followers on Instagram, and Kylie Jenner, who's about the same age, a little older, but very close, has 300 million. And one of them is always in a private jet, and one of them takes a sailboat. And who did
she takes a sailboat around?
Greta.
That's pretty gangster.
Greta,
she takes
well, when she because she didn't want to use
right, of course, you were using the wind power. That's
so
pretty gangster.
She came to the UN as a teenager in a sailboat.
Wow.
But what I'm saying is,
I like her more now.
Kylie has so many more followers. Yeah. Obviously, the kids want to be Kylie. They want to be in the private jet. You know who doesn't take private jets? Only people who can't. Anyone who could does.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to resist. Even environmentalists are always caught taking private jets. Really,
They are.
They really are. So like, just don't fucking lie to me.
Yeah.
Don't gaslight me.
Right.
I mean, it is a real thing. I mean, the UN, their interclimatary panel, puts out a thing every, I don't know, year or so, and I just saw it. It was last week in the paper, and it said like, if we don't. It's like my dog. I'm gonna. I mean, this has been going on the entire century. If we don't do this by 2011, it's too. And it's like, I agree. I think that's true. And yet, they keep saying it. And now this one is like, if we don't like switch this up real fast by 2028 or something, the tipping point and it's over. It's like, you know what? I'm sure that is actually going to happen. We are going to hit that tipping point. But you've said it so many times. I remember James Hansen of NASA said it, I think, it might have been on my first year of my show in 2003, or maybe I just read it that year, but he said definitely like in 10 years, which would 2013, if we haven't completely reversed how much carbon we use, it's like, okay. And things are bad. I mean, California, one reason it is tempting to move is just the fires.
Yeah.
That's fucking scary.
Scary shit.
When I remember one week in 2020 when the sun was blocked out from the sky because of the smoke from like hundreds of miles away for a week. I was very depressed that week.
Yeah, I was there for that. I got evacuated 3 times from fires.
Is that right?
Yeah, one time was really scary. We were filming Fear Factor in Tejon Ranch, and we were driving, I think it was Tejon Ranch. We were filming on this ranch area up in north, like hour and a half or so away, and we had to leave because of the fires, and the fires had gotten so bad that driving home for 50 minutes, the entire right side of the highway was in flames. Like, you have to understand how much fire you're talking about.
Wow.
It was insane. There was a guy who got killed trying to run across the street.
Oh.
So a guy tried to run it across the highway in the middle of this and got hit by a car. So we saw him laid out. And it's like ash is falling like snow.
Right.
50 fucking minutes of just the hills on fire like a goddamn Hobbit movie. Really, like Lord of the Rings. It was wild.
That's scary.
It was terrifying because
terrifying.
you realize at that point, this is so out of control, you got to let it burn its path because no amount of people are going to stop this. There's not enough water.
Still wouldn't make me go to Texas.
I love it here. But let me say one thing
too.
Before we move on because I don't want to mischaracterize what these different guys said. We had 2 different guys back to back on the podcast. Pull up their names. One guy, the first guy was the more conservative guy in terms of like his thought about it. He didn't think that it wasn't happening. He was just saying that the data points are being exaggerated, and
like,
if you follow a long curve, he was saying if you follow a long curve of history, it's been way worse at multiple times, and it goes in this erratic pattern that you can kind of follow. He said humans are 100% having an influence on that. He wasn't a climate denier.
About Bjorn Lornberg?
No, I'll tell you who he is.
Okay, but
he's a brilliant guy. He's a professor at MIT, right?
Well,
is that where he is?
And to your point earlier about talking to each other, when I hear something like this, I don't say to myself, I think what too many people say to themselves, I don't want to hear that.
Right.
I already know the answer to this question about climate. That's my tribe. I'm like, well, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that man-made climate change isn't happening, and it isn't going to be catastrophic. But I desperately want to hear this. First of all, for my own psyche. Maybe I'll hear something that will make me not be so shitting in my pants about the environment.
But
I just want to know it because
doom and gloom about it.
It's I just want
Andrew Dessler and Stephen Koonin.
Yeah, Steve Koonin is the guy who was what does it say his background is? Because he's the guy who wrote the book that I'm referring to right now, which was referred to me by another friend of mine who's one of the most brilliant people I know. And he had read it, and he's like, I went into this book prepared to call bullshit at every turn. I just wanted to know, like, how is this popular that people have this opinion? And he said he went through all the data, and he's very progressive. He went through all the data, and he was like, you know what? I think he might be onto something. So, theoretical physicist, former director of the Center for Urban Science and Progress at New York University, and he's a professor at the Department of Civil and Urban Engineering at NYU's Tandon School of Engineering. He's a fucking brilliant guy.
Sounds like a real asshole.
He's a nice guy.
I'm kidding. No, but...
but my point is, I just don't want to misrepresent him. And the next gentleman was... Complete opposite. The next gentleman was, we're fucked.
Let me just add one thing to the. I do want to know what this guy says because I do. All I ever want is the facts,
Right.
just the facts. I just want to know what's true.
I believe that.
Right, and I believe it of you. But here's the thing: you just told me this guy's name. I'm interested. I would bet that I can talk to somebody in 6 degrees of knowing somebody who is familiar with this guy and will say, "Oh yeah," and then tell me something that I'm not hearing now.
Yep.
That is like, "Oh yeah," and you didn't hear. He also, believes
Witches. Dude, I ask people if they believe in
that was
ghosts.
such a good.
When people tell me dumb things, I ask them if they believe in ghosts.
Well,
Whenever someone has a dumb belief, like they have a belief that was like, wait, hold on. Do you believe in ghosts?
you know what? I'm the most rational guy I know, but I might.
I might believe in ghosts.
You know why?
I might too.
Because there's too many highly intelligent people who I know who I've grilled when they tell me they had some sort of experience. Like they're not drunk, they're not religious people.
Right.
You know, I've grilled them. You're sure I was not drinking? You're sure you weren't sleeping? This was not a drink. Too many people have some sort of experience. I don't know what it is, and I don't give a fuck because I'm never going to know, and they're not bothering me, the ghosts, apparently.
I think I know what it is.
What is it?
It's one of two things. One, it is like one of those things in the dark that you think you see, and so there's like a pattern in our head for looking for things in the dark.
Maybe
people
yeah.
always look. I think you can hallucinate because I know people that have hallucinated when they got scared. Like my wife was telling me a story about her dad scaring her when she was little, and he just snuck up on her, played a trick, and she literally saw a monster. Like that's how she saw it. She saw it like a monster, and then it took her like a second to realize it was just her dad. But like people see things.
Right.
They just see.
Yes.
That's part of the problem. And then the other thing is that people's brains produce psychedelic chemicals. And you don't know why, right? People's brains produce dimethyltryptamine. They produce all sorts of weird neurotransmitters. And I have to think that they go in and out in just like your testosterone does, just like your adrenaline does.
Right.
There's probably waves of them.
Right.
And I think if a lot goes through, which this is not like fiction. Your
Right,
brain
of
makes
course.
potent psychedelics. So if
Correct.
your brain just lets a little out, and then you just you're tripping balls,
Yeah.
and you think it's a fucking ghost.
Why do you think we're doing this today?
I don't
Why
know.
are we smoking these clove
it's good.
cigarettes?
It's good for you.
No, aren't we doing it to purposely excite those forces in your brain you're talking
Yeah,
about?
definitely.
Right.
That's part of it. Carl Sagan said that about marijuana, that he believed that there was ideas that come, I'm paraphrasing in a shitty way, but ideas that come through marijuana that aren't available.
My whole act. What are you talking about? There are ideas. My act, my podcast, everything
Yeah.
I write.
Yeah.
There's so many things in life. Well, not so many, but the key ones that I just really can't do without marijuana.
It definitely makes it better. It really does.
I mean,
you can abuse it, but you can
Yeah,
abuse every fucking thing in life.
Absolutely.
Including food, which you need to stay alive.
Right. That's the
Yeah.
main one people abuse.
Yeah. I mean, if you can abuse food, you can't make an argument for I shouldn't use something because people can abuse it. Because you can abuse everything.
No, of course. And by the way, personally, I have never abused it. Pot.
That's awesome.
Never been an everyday smoker.
That's good.
I don't think you couldn't find 4 weeks in my whole life where I smoked 7 days in a row. People think I'm a much bigger pothead than I am.
Well,
Pass the lighter.
Terrence McKenna talked about that, and he said that he feels like the way to do marijuana is to take a long stretch off and do as much as you can stand. He was like, there's what marijuana really can provide, he goes, in terms of like a psychedelic experience is underestimated by people because they become casual users and they build up a certain tolerance and they get accustomed to getting a little high. I like to get a little high. I like 2 hits, 3 hits. I'm good. What he was saying is like, if you really want to know the essence of what marijuana is capable of, take a month off and then get obliterated. Just get obliterated. Do
Go
as
on that
much
Real
as you
B
can
show.
stand. No,
That
not
go in the
He
hot
would-
box.
I'm sure he would recommend Silent Darkness. He treated it he was a habitual daily user just because he loved it, and he would joke around about it. But he was saying that he treated it like when used correctly, like a potent psychedelic, We just don't think we're
Right.
essentially microdosing.
It was kind of like that. I remember when I first did it, when I was 19 years
Right.
old, and the first time you're just like out of your mind. I remember that whole first year, like I would be home from college, and my friend who turned me on to it, he was at a different college, and we'd be home on vacation, and he'd come over and, bye, Mom, we're going out. And I'd go out to the driveway. He'd pick me up. I'd get in the passenger seat, and we'd be in the driveway for an hour because we smoked one hit, and we were just screaming, laughing in the car. My mother looking at the window like, what are they doing? They're just laughing their heads off in the driveway. That doesn't happen anymore.
I think it could.
Well, see, here's the thing. As much as I'm patting myself on the back because I don't smoke every day, the other thing that I've always wanted to do is exactly what you're saying, take a month off, and I've never been able to accomplish that.
Really?
There was never 4 whole weeks. No, that's because I'd have to, limit so much of my life. I couldn't, write or fuck or do stand-up. I mean, I just have to be, I don't smoke when I do a fast, a few times a year for 5 days.
Oh,
And
really?
Yes.
Wow, that's a long stretch.
I think you have to do about 5 to get the effect you're looking for.
What's the effect you get?
Well, it reboots your immune system. I mean, I'm not a scientist, Joe, so I can't exactly tell you the exact stuff. But I've read the book on it, and I think first of all, just to give your digestive system a rest, I think does enormous good for you. I think most of the body's energy is spent digesting food. And especially if you eat shitty food, I don't, but lots of people do, and that's, I think, where our big health problems come from. But even regular food, I only eat 2 meals a day, but still, most of the energy goes to digesting food. You give your body that break, and it can work on so many other things that it's been putting off, because I think that's how the body works. That's certainly classic holistic medicine, that the body heals from the most recent insult, and then if it fixes that, goes back in time. And so, about a couple of times a year, I will not eat for 5 days. Minimal. Sometimes there's a fasting mimicking diet that's pretty good that I've done, but I cannot smoke during that week because smoking would make me ravenously hungry and wanting to be social, and so it has to be 5 days, and it's you get through it, but
How much weight do you lose?
You lose probably in the week 10 pounds. But you'll put. The last time I went down from I was 158, and I think I went down to 148, and then stayed at 150, which was great because that's my perfect weight. And I don't know how you get those. This I don't understand at all. You're over 50, and you have those big muscles.
I work out.
I know.
I take testosterone replacement too. That helps.
Testosterone replacement?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't that dangerous?
Well, you know what's dangerous? Getting old and dying. That's dangerous. The more you can keep from becoming feeble, the better off you are.
Right.
That's a fact. It's a fact in terms of your immune system. It's a fact in terms of your overall vitality and your physical energy. You want to keep a robust body if at all possible. And the key to doing that, if you're going to do anything, you got to maximize your diet, and then you have to do some sort of resistance training. All kinds of stuff is great for you. Yoga's great, running's great, everything's great. But as you get older, resistance training is imperative because your body starts to decay. If it's not, your muscles, your bones are going to get less dense. It's just, and the way to ward that off the best is heavy-duty resistance training.
How do you deal with, how old are you now?
54.
54, okay. I remember 54. It wasn't that long ago. But certainly by 54, I remember... mortality is just on your mind in a way that it wasn't on my mind for 1 second when I was even 40. You just never think of it. And your body is so much more resilient that you don't have to consider it when you're out drinking or whatever you're doing. I had no worries about, and that's why younger people don't want to be forced to buy health insurance. They should, because that's the only way that system will work, and it'll help them later on in life if everyone contributes on that level. But they don't want to, because I remember being that age, and it's
You're broke too.
I'm broke, and I don't need this.
Yeah.
I don't need a doctor.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a Vegas pool party?
Yes.
Okay, it's a lot of muscle men like you standing in a pool at noon. They haven't been to sleep yet. They're baking in the sun on steroids. They were drinking all night, had unprotected sex, snorted coke through a dirty $20 bill, and they're fine. They're fine. So when I see kids like walking with a mask outside alone, I just want to punch them because you know what? You have the good immune system at that age.
Well, I think we've raised the overall level of anxiety of people significantly.
Oh,
and
terrible.
For kids, there was a chart they did. Sagar had it on his Instagram page. It shows feelings of sadness and depression, the elevated rise from COVID from 2019 up. It's like across the board with kids. There it is.
If you, that's like.
But that's probably my point is it's probably with all of us.
That's quite a chart.
I don't think it's just with kids, and I don't think it's just with young people. I think it's all of us, even people that did well with the pandemic. It's still like
there
weird.
there is a marked difference in generations about anxiety. Mm-hmm. The person on my podcast that dropped today is Bella Thorne. I had never talked to her. I certainly was aware of who she was. And a lot of what we're talking about, I mean, I thought it was pretty funny, but, I'm high when I'm doing it, is anxiety. I mean, she has a lot of anxiety, very typical of her generation, in a way that my generation just does not. And a lot of what we were talking about is I'm trying in a kind of fatherly way of saying you don't need to be this sad about shit, and have this much anxiety about stuff. And of course, if a generation has anxiety to begin with to this degree, when something like a pandemic comes along that is legitimately somewhat anxiety producing, you're going to have the people who feast on anxiety OD on it. And that's why who's the dude? I love him. David Leonhardt was on Real Time Friday, and he's written great articles about this and made the point that younger people who should be way less concerned are actually way more concerned about COVID. People my age should be more worried, and they're less worried than people who are 30.
Yeah.
That's not a healthy place for society to be.
The only people that seem to have escaped the fear of the disease itself is young kids don't seem to be scared of it, which is good because they get it and it's no big deal.
Well,
but the young kids that I see walking around with masks on voluntarily, that disturbs me.
I had I was in Chicago, must have been summer 21, like less than a year ago, and I remember the driver we had. And we were talking, and, everywhere we go, I always tell people, you don't have to put the mask on for me. First of all, cloth mask. I got vaccinated, then I got COVID. I'm good. I wasn't worried about it before I was vaccinated. Anyway, so the driver tells us the story about, he said, my 4-year-old, if she sees me without a mask, she has a panic attack about it.
Oh, Jesus.
That is something that,
Yeah, that's scary.
That's so scary because she knows nothing else.
Yeah.
She's, from 2 to 4, she lived with masks always. And in school, I mean, in New York City, I believe they still have masks under 5 years old. So I think when they're over 5 to 11, they stop with the mask for some reason. But I mean, these little kids.
Yeah, the elevation and the level of anxiety that generation's can experience when they get to be of like voting age. That can be really strange.
And it does infect politics.
Yeah,
absolutely,
for sure.
I mean, there is a feeling of. David Leonhardt also makes the great point about. He says too many Democrats have organized their sense of self around how they feel about COVID, and. There is this idea, it sort of got subsumed into the virtue signaling world, whereas if I'm a person who believes in more safety than you, then I'm a better person. And it's actually not that simple.
Yeah, it's an easy way to catch social credibility to say that.
Yes, and to sort of discount all the things that we will find out in the years to come that were detrimental because of the steps we took to curb COVID.
Yeah.
And some things should have been done, of course, and some things I'm very glad we have a vaccine. I personally didn't think I needed it. I would have chosen to let my immune system handle it. But okay, I'm glad because this is a country that is not in good health. And if you're not in good health, you are very vulnerable to this
especially obesity
virus. But you shouldn't penalize people who have chosen a different path in life.
Yeah.
You know, I would always defend those athletes who didn't want it, the Aaron Rodgers, the Kyrie Irvings, the Djokovics, because what they were saying was, look, I'm a finely tuned athlete with a perfect body. My body is my life. Of course, I keep it in as good a shape as I can. Every year I play, I can make another, what do they make, $50 million a year?
Yeah.
Of course I want to play as long as I can. So I'm super careful about everything I put into my body. Everything.
Yeah.
You have to respect that.
Well,
And
with
people-
Aaron Rodgers, it's even more important because he's actually allergic to one of the what is that stuff called? Polyglyph.
Yes,
Fuck
I
was it
know what
called?
you.
That whatever that chemical is. He has an allergy to it. It's in shampoo, right?
It's
Isn't
in
it?
everything.
Well, he has an allergy.
Now, do we
to that
know
stuff.
for sure it's in the vaccine?
According to Aaron, he said it's not in the Johnson & Johnson, but it is in the other one.
Yeah,
I think that's correct.
Let's see
Can you
again.
Google that. See if that's correct.
And I don't even know if I trust Google. That's the problem these days. It's like whatever I learn, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
but I don't trust anyone completely. I almost always feel like I'm getting somebody's narrative.
Yes.
I'm not getting a truth. I'm getting a narrative or something that feeds your narrative. And I just want to know.
Yeah.
Just tell me. Even if you tell me that
Okay, Roger says he's allergic to an ingredient used in the 2 mRNA vaccines, the Pfizer and Moderna, and steered away from Johnson & Johnson vaccine after reports of adverse reactions. He did not disclose what ingredients. Oh, well, I think he told me. Polyethylene glycol.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of that a lot.
That's the
I mean,
stuff.
I think it's. I
That's
think
what
it
they're saying it is.
now.
I can
but
neither confirm nor deny.
is it for sure in the vaccine? I would not bet $2 on yes or no there.
Right.
I have no idea.
That's a good point.
Because
I've done no research.
I can.
Yeah.
No, I mean I probably have, but it's like I don't know. I would trust it came from the CDC if they personally admitted yes, this is, or the people who make the vaccine. Anybody else, I don't know. But then again, they could be lying. I also don't trust them to tell me the truth about whether they did put it in there. And I don't know what the fucking shit is. That maybe it's the stuff in Twinkies,
Right.
and maybe it's rocket fuel that you take to look like
Right.
that at your age. I don't know what the fuck it is, or if it's going to be bad for me. Here's my thing about my overarching theme always about anything medical is everyone else, I feel, or most people, are giving us too much credit for where we are medically because we are, of course, further along than we used to be. You know, we're not putting wooden teeth into people.
Right.
You know, I mean, it wasn't that long ago they were rubbing dirt into wounds. I mean, just some really stupid fucking things that people did who are calling themselves doctors. So obviously we've come a long way just in the last 100 years. But my point of view is that we are still at the infancy of understanding how the human body works. So don't tell me things like, just do what we say, don't question it. When have we ever been wrong? A lot.
All the
You've
time.
been wrong a lot, and you just don't know a lot. You haven't cured cancer. I'm not blaming you for that. I know you're trying, and I could name 1,000 other things you haven't cured. Parkinson's and MS and Lyme disease. You just don't know very much. It's not an insult. You just don't. If you can't tell me exactly why people get cancer, and mostly you can't, obviously smokers get lung cancer. Other than that, it's not obvious who gets it or why. I don't know what confluence of things that are put in my, there's so many thousand things that could change it. How much mercury do I have in my system? How much tuna fish did I eat? How often do I hold the phone up to my head? A million things. How many x-rays have I had? What are my genetics? So just don't tell me, well, we are perfectly certain that this vaccine is safe, or we are perfectly certain that these x-rays are a low dose and they won't. You don't fucking know that. You don't know what all these different things, there's like 50,000 chemicals we have in our body that we didn't have 100 years ago. You don't know what the interchange of all these elements is doing to me. And me, personally, it might be different than you. So just don't have that attitude of just get it in you, because we are the people who know.
Not just that, but they're making insane amounts of profit from that. We're supposed to pretend that they've been honest about the risks of things in the past. And they've been, like that Vioxx tragedy, where they pitched that anti-inflammatory medication that wound up killing at least 50,000 people.
They've taken hundreds of drugs off the market.
Yeah.
I mean,
all the time. They do it every year.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them, only like 100 were like ordered off, but the rest was like, well, they're going to order it off because it's killing people, so let's withdraw it. That's in the thousands. They just took Chantix.
What's that stuff?
That's the stuff that smoking.
Oh,
just
gets you to stop smoking?
Right, so you don't get cancer.
What else does it do?
So it turns out it might give you cancer.
Oh, Jesus Christ, it gives you cancer?
Well, we're not going to say that. We're not going to get sued, Joe.
We
I don't
didn't
know.
say that.
But I think they took it off the market because they obviously feel it might.
Oh, Jesus
And it was
Christ.
on the market for 15 years. Okay, there's your...
Pfizer's voluntarily recalling all lots of Chantix 0.5 long-term ingestion of N-nitrosovarinicline may be associated with a theoretical potential increase cancer risk. Potential increased cancer risk is amazing. But there's no immediate risk to patients taking this medication. The health benefits of stopping smoking outweigh the theoretical potential cancer risk from the nitrosamine impurity in varenicline.
Yeah. Well, easy for you to say.
Yeah.
But I mean, the point is, it was on the market for 15 years. And now, so whenever something like that is in the news, which it is like on a weekly basis, I just want to say to these people, what else don't you know? Just admit you don't know very much. You know, last year they came out with the news that metabolism, which they always thought slowed in age, does not. Okay, so you got that wrong forever. It seems really fundamental. There was an article in the New York Times in 2018. It was called something like A New Organ in the Human Body, Time to Rewrite the Anatomy Books. It was talked about this channel of elastin that runs all through the body that they never knew about. So we're rewriting you can't even map the shit in there yet. They've discovered 2 new saliva glands in the last couple of years they never knew we had. The G-spot. I don't think we have to go into that. That was new in the 80s.
Is that a real thing?
What?
The G-spot? They've narrowed it down to an actual area in the body. It's not just
now
theoretical?
They believe it's it's definitely a real thing. Come on. But now they believe it's actually 5 areas.
That
anyway,
makes more sense.
It's
like a button doesn't make a lot of sense. Seems like there's
I don't think it was ever a button. It's way back in there. Believe me, I know it when I hit it. it's like, I could give you directions, but
mapping out the human body.
Point is, the
insanely
body
complex.
They haven't even done it yet. It's the bottom of the ocean. So don't come at me with the science and the experts. Who's experts? There are other doctors. Yes, and by the way, I don't think it should just be MDs who are able to weigh in on this because they don't fucking often know more than somebody else, a holistic doctor or just my trainer I just introduced you to. Knows more than most doctors I've ever talked to about medicine. Okay, but if we just stick to doctors, let's pretend that only MDs know things about medicine. even by that standard, there's many dissenting MDs.
Yeah.
And many more than you know about because they're intimidated to speak out. Because if they do, the repercussions can be extremely deleterious.
Yeah, and there was a weird sort of cult-like aspect to it. You were with us or you were against us. Even if you were a reasonable person that just wanted to talk about different kinds of medications, like monoclonal antibodies in particular.
Right.
Like that became a thing. Like, no, that's not available. But it is available.
Right.
Like, what are you saying it's not available? And if it's not available, why not get it more available?
Well,
Because it works really well.
Didn't they give it to Trump when he
Yes. That's all
Right.
I'm saying.
Oh,
It
I-
became very cult-like in that way. Like you could not question the narrative, and it could
Right.
not, other things could not be discussed. You weren't supposed to talk about vitamin D. If you did, like, fuck you, the vaccine.
I did the first week
Yeah.
of I remember I had a lady on right before we shut down in
Yeah.
2020. And I said, sugar, stop eating sugar.
Yeah.
You know, sleep, stress, the 3 S's, and vitamin D. And I don't want to be this conspiracy person. I'm not. I think it's important in any discussion. I think you got in trouble for not doing this once. Just to say the vaccine, even though they were wrong about how it stops you from getting it or giving it, it at least does work as
Probably
far as
saved
stop you from dying.
A
And
large
and
number of lives.
So whenever,
right?
so like just to indemnify ourselves, let's say, or at least I'm going to say, that is still the big headline. There is a vaccine. Most people in this country, not in good metabolic shape to begin with, get the vaccine because it will stop you from dying. That's not everybody, and that should be another discussion that's valid too.
Exactly. And that's where things are weird.
Right.
Where things are weird is that you're not allowed to have that discussion,
And-
whether or
right.
not it should be for, X age or, someone who's this
And
healthy.
that again, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but it is just suspicious to me that we're not allowed to talk about the things that wouldn't be that profitable, like vitamin D. Or,
That's a coincidence,
or, you
Bill
know,
Maher. That's just a
Or,
coincidence.
the thing I'm always talking about, people on the internet are like, Bill, why do you hate fat people? I don't hate fat people. I'm talking about a medical issue here that was the biggest medical issue before COVID, and I'm sorry, still is. And I'm talking about something that, according to the statistics, I've been trying to get people to understand. And again, this is from the CDC, it's like 78% of
Yeah.
people who died or were hospitalized were obese. Okay, if I just said to you, there's a factor, I'm not going to say which one, but it is involved in 78% of this. If you're the media and you're not broadcasting that factor of 78% all the time, if you're the government and you're not trying to get people to be aware of that factor, that's suspicious and criminal.
It's also there's I think there's that, but it's also this thing where people don't want people to feel bad,
That's it.
and it's become
That's all of it.
Yeah.
It's sensitivity.
that's a giant
the
chunk of it. A giant
elevation
chunk
of sensitivity over truth
Yeah.
was my original definition of politically incorrect.
Mm.
And it is still a big problem in this country. Sensitivity is important. It's not the only thing.
It's not the only thing, because there's certain times where people are so indulgent, and if you don't say something to them, they never really understand how you feel. They can trick themselves. If you don't
Right.
come along and go, hey, man,
Right.
you're smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day,
Right.
you fucking idiot.
Right.
Like, if you can do that to a friend because it doesn't affect their appearance,
And,
right?
it wouldn't be called smoke shaming.
Right, exactly. That's my point. Like, if you're not doing much of a different thing if you're just eating Twinkies all day. It's not much different.
No.
It's pretty close. If you're getting morbidly obese, your body is firing all wrong. It's all
Right.
bang, bang. Everything's all fucked. It doesn't know why it's so fat. It doesn't know why it's getting processed sugar all day.
Right.
All these autoimmune issues start popping up. It can be a fucking mess to be really, really fat. Just like it's a mess to smoke 3 or 4 packs of cigarettes a day. But you're a smart guy if you walk up to your friend and a good guy and you say, hey, fuckface, stop smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day. You're going to die, man. Stop it. Like, then you're a good friend stepping in. But if you're like, hey, Bob, you're 500 pounds and you're 5 feet tall. This is fucking crazy.
Right.
Like, you can't do this.
No, but I mean, that is, again, one area where we have just gone through the looking glass
Yeah.
because, body positivity now is a term.
So
and it's
crazy.
like, there is nothing, it is not positivity. That's that's positively Orwellian to term it that way, or I mean, look, again, we should never belittle people for whatever issues they have, of course.
Of course.
But to normalize this the way we have in society, in culture now, that it's just seen as an alternative lifestyle to be morbidly obese.
Yeah.
That's just a way to be, and how dare you even suggest that there's anything negative to that. But there is something negative to that. Now, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Yeah, that's what you like? Fantastic. But science is not in the eye of the beholder. And and science is unforgiving. So when I see like every TV show now, it's like a minority group. Every TV show has to have a very large person. I mean, no, I'm serious. Because it's like otherwise you are somehow
not representation,
right? Somehow you are prejudiced against
big people.
If you don't, it's I find that bizarre, and of course it just gives a message to America. Oh, this is normal. This is okay. This is fine. This is just another way to be. And I certainly haven't heard anything about it from the government that it's unhealthy, because they would never say that.
If it didn't affect your health, that would be one thing. If it was just that you look
of course, that's
sloppy.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
If you just got really big and really heavy, and it's just the way you look,
yeah.
Then you're right.
Right.
Then you're right.
That's a look. Anybody.
Yeah.
There's lots of looks I don't like.
Exactly.
And that could just be another one.
That's fine.
And some people would like it, but it's
if that was the case, that would be amazing.
That's not the case.
It's not the case at all.
The case is and the truth is, if the country wasn't so unhealthy to begin with, the virus would not have been so catastrophic.
Right.
And it wouldn't have cost us $6 trillion. I mean, it would have cost us something. But, I mean, there's a direct link to how unhealthy people were to begin with,
right,
and to how much it cost us. And literally, I think this is an issue that could bankrupt the country. I mean, we were talking about health care before COVID as the number one thing that had to be fixed somehow economically, because it had become like an unsustainable percentage of the economy was going toward health care. I mean, this is why they did Obamacare.
Yeah.
People said very often they weren't for Obamacare, but nobody said we can keep going the way we're going.
When you have to pay for stuff, like if you have to pay for insurance, and everybody just assumes that everybody has to pay for insurance, and someone comes along and says, maybe we shouldn't have to pay for that. There's this thing we have where this is always how it's been. This is always how it's been. We had to pay for college. We had to pay for health care. We had to pay. You should fucking pay. We had to pay. You pay your fucking student loans. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing that people do, where it's like, okay, we pay for the fire department, right? We're not saying if you don't pay for the fire department, then a fire comes, they don't put your house out, right? We all agree to that. It's kind of a socialist idea. Why can't we apply those things that we agree are fucking real important, like having a fire department? You're telling me that applying those to college or applying those to healthcare are bad? Like, what are we spending our money on?
Right.
And this is where people like you and me probably agree with a lot of things, but you see there's people that go like further and further away from that and look at that as like, that's a Republican idea to think that,
right,
you know, that this is a bad thing.
Right. Well,
the Republican idea to think that you have to pay your way and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I mean, that's that weird mentality about it, right?
And it would be so easy for the Democrats to reclaim that high ground.
Yes.
And just to bite back against that.
Be fucking rational.
Just be rational and common sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I say this all the time because the percentage of graft keeps getting higher and higher. Now, we found out recently that something like, I'm going to get the number wrong. Maybe you can look it up on your magic light box, but like 20%, I think, of the unemployment checks we passed out during COVID were complete fraud.
A mere pittance.
The PPP.
Yeah, oh my God. So many people got arrested for having Lamborghinis and shit.
Right. I mean, J.K. Rowling got money.
No, she didn't.
Yeah, for her Broadway show.
What?
Because if she didn't, she'd be living in her car, Joe.
She got money from that? That's hilarious.
Everybody got money.
That
Tom Brady got
so crazy.
And like when you look at some of the percent, and like the number for to build a house for the homeless in L.A. has risen to $837,000.
A mere pittance, Bill Maher. A mere pittance from these greedy billionaires out there. We need to tax them all.
If I'm complaining about that, again, to your point about a Republican idea, people would say, oh, you're complaining about government spending money. And my answer is, okay, but is there any number at which point I am not tipped over into the Republican side
Right.
that I can't complain about money that is just being stolen?
Right.
I mean, I totally, as a good liberal, I totally accept the notion that, as someone once said, you cannot transfer money except with a leaky bucket. I get it. It can't be perfect. But is it not
20%?
But is there no number for which I cannot remonstrate against this? 20% is a low. It's even higher than that. That was only the unemployment checks. The PPP stuff was even higher.
That's where it's beautiful and brilliant, because they attach it to something that's like we need to help these people. We need to help these people. These people are all losing their jobs and their businesses are shut down. We need to provide them with money.
Right.
And then the grift. The grift. Some of it gets it's like,
yes.
let's promote, and whoever's doing it.
California tried to build a railroad. They wanted to build a rail line between L.A. and San Francisco. Made sense. It's a big, long state, and cars and blah, blah, good for the environment. And it was when they finally pulled the plug, because it just became too ridiculous. It was at $200 million a mile. Now, France built France, a country not unknown to have unions and workers' rights. Very big over there in Europe, right? Workers' rights, unions. I mean, they're always on strike. Always on strike in Europe. And they talk with their hands. Okay. So France, again, a very unionized country, did it for like 1/7. That's how bad.
1/7?
Yeah, something like that. Which again is something like $15 million a mile or whatever it was.
Right.
But I mean, $200 million a mile, and it was only to connect like Bakersfield to I don't know, Pacoima or something, and they couldn't even do that.
Were you in Boston when they were doing the Big Dig?
I was never in Boston. I mean, I played Boston, loved playing the town, but I've never lived there. But I know of it. I remember 60 Minutes doing a story on it. Yes, the Big Dig. And they did finally finish it.
They did.
But
it was so late, and they robbed so much money from it.
Oh, exactly.
That was the whole thing about the corruption involved
of course.
in that. Yeah.
And it was really just a short tunnel from the airport, was it? Under Logan, one of the few airports in the country that's right next to the city.
Yep.
Like only like there in Vegas do you fly in,
right,
and you're like 5 minutes from downtown. It's awesome. And I think it was not where it was connecting.
Yeah, they were trying to lighten up some of that traffic, and they completed it, but it was like, I mean, they were doing it when I was there in the 80s. And then they were still doing it when I came back. What year was the Big Dig completed? I want to say it was like at least 10 years late.
2004.
Oh, yeah.
2004 they completed it. Yeah,
so 07.
So they were doing it when I lived there.
I mean, when I hear about Build Back Better, okay, look, certainly the country needs to get rebuilt. I mean, the infrastructure is a mess.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking always, like, when you give me a number, it's like, it just seems like you pulled it out of your ass. You know, it's going to cost $1.5 billion. We know that and it came in right at that round number, huh?
Yeah.
To rebuild this or something. And are we going over this with a fine tooth? Are we really seeing that what if we only spent $1.2 billion? Or trillion, I'm undercounting it. What if we only spent $1.2 trillion? What would we be sacrificing? Anything? Because so much of that money is going to consultants and just siphoned off by all the pigs at the trough, all snorting this shit up with their big fucking snouts.
Yeah, and there's very few people that are saying that. But that's exactly what's happening.
That to me is not a Republican idea.
Right.
It's just,
common sense.
Yes, common sense.
Did you ever see that Republican? There was a guy who had the bill in his hand, and he was talking about how crazy it is for these people to say that they've read through this. And he shows it. He's holding it up. It's got like I don't know, how many 100 pages did it have? It's this giant stack. He's like, do you think they really read this before they signed it? Do you think they went through this? There's no fucking way.
Yeah, but you know what? Republicans don't deserve to get any pass on this either because they, first of all, are just as responsible for spending money we don't have and not stopping this kind of graft. And they could give a shit anymore about a balanced budget. At least they used to pretend. Now all they care about is owning the libs. They don't even have any. They have no issues in their party. They could give about as much of a shit of a balanced budget as they do for the new season of RuPaul's Drag Race. They are all about the conspiracy shit, QAnon stuff. That's what animates that party. Stolen election, eating babies, pedophile teachers. I mean, that's what they do not have the traditional Republican issues. Russia. They used to be the hard on Russia people. That went out the window. Democracy. I don't think they think democracy is essentially an essential part of America. The way I would characterize the two parties, I'm going to do a thing on this on my show next week, I think. Democrats would say America and democracy are inextricably linked. You cannot think of one without the other. Republicans now, no, I'll think about that.
Really?
Absolutely. Democracy, in fact, Mike Lee, I think, is the one who said it. He was like, democracy is not the most important part of this country. It's, I think, in their view, a lot of these kind of people would be Christianity.
Oh, before democracy.
Absolutely. And also, like, keeping our culture the same. And, it's democracy, nice, but kind of a luxury. And that's a fundamental difference where we've never been before. So,
I need to see someone saying that.
It's not like
because I haven't, to even argue with you or disagree with you, I'd have to see someone saying that. I've never seen anybody say that. I think that's such a dangerous thing.
Get a Mike Lee quote that says...
it's a dangerous thing to say.
Very dangerous.
To offer up alternatives to democracy.
But that's
spooky.
That's where the party is, and they deserve no
But is that
pats on
both
the
parties?
back.
Is that both parties?
No.
You don't think so?
I'm saying that's the difference right now. Democrats still believe in democracy. When Al Gore got gypped out of the election, he was like, okay, we're not a democracy. Well, no, that's not it.
No,
I
that's
mean,
not it.
that it's...
Mike Lee's tweets against democracy explained.
Tweets, I guess, but-
Okay, so that's just what he said.
He wrote... There's a different one where he said...
He said we're not a democracy.
No,
He said, he had said democracy is not important. Is that what you're saying?
That's it. Democracy is not as important as some other
Democracy is
things.
not as important.
Something like
Yeah.
that. But
Democracy is the objective. Is that what he said? Of the U.S. system.
Democracy isn't the objective of the U.S. system.
Made an inflammatory declaration in a morning tweet.
Where I would say it is.
That guy looks like a man who needs marijuana, right? If you guessed, how often does he get high? Almost never.
Right.
Look at him.
Well, he's from Utah.
Yeah, they get high in Utah.
Yes, they do. And of course, any place where they're very religious, they're also very freaky.
Yeah, well, that's a great club to work at.
Salt Lake City?
Yeah, Wise Guys. You do that?
Oh, I don't think I've ever worked Wise
It's fun
Guys.
to practice.
Really?
Yeah, it's a great place. It's fun. It's a fun place to perform. They're great people.
Yes, I agree. Mormons are very nice.
It's not Mormons. It's the people that live with Mormons.
Right, and people
and people who are rebel Mormons.
Right. And it's very beautiful country.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right there, nestled up in the mountains.
But you have a place there or something?
No, I just like to go there.
Do you have a vacation home or something?
No. I should probably get one. If I get one, I'm going to get one in the mountains, so somewhere like very weird.
Still in Texas?
No. I'd like to get somewhere north. So if this global warming shit really does pan out in a negative way, Montana looks sweet.
I mean, I remember being in Alaska 10 years ago, and I've never seen a place like that as beautiful because it was so clean.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like this time of year, spring, and everywhere the snow melting, and there was just little drippings of water coming down everywhere, and it was like the purest, most pristine. Of course, there was also like moose walking down the street.
Yep.
They're
resilient people up there.
And it was, yes, it's almost, I mean, I remember I played one, I think it was Fairbanks. Fairbanks and Anchorage. And Fairbanks, it was almost like a Western town. It was like a Western show. It was under a tent. I remember I walked through mud to get to the stage. I loved it. It was raining. They didn't care. They were standing. That was so cool. I don't want to do it again, but it was very cool for once. And then I went to Anchorage, and that was like the land that time forgot. It was like everything looked like it had been in the 70s. You know, the hotel, the restaurants, I guess they got a lot of oil money. They refurbished, and then they just stopped. But that was kind of cool, too. And, you know, everyone has a gun in their glove compartment.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could see them. I saw a reindeer on a chain out in the front yard like a dog. I'm not kidding.
Oh my God.
That's one thing that's so great about being a comic and traveling, right? You know, you're different places and you just see different things like you wouldn't if you worked in an office.
The most resilient people, though, have to be the Alaskans because they're surrounded by monsters. They're in the furthest north place that you could call America.
Yeah, punishingly cold.
And they have real wildlife, like big wildlife around them all the time.
Yeah, bears.
You've seen a moose in real life?
Yeah, I saw them walking down the street.
It's fucking crazy how big they are. They're so big, it's crazy. They look like a cartoon animal. You can't believe how big they are.
I'm sure they're very sweet. They don't look like
no,
they
they're
want to hurt
dangerous. They're dangerous.
Really?
Yeah, especially the
Bullwinkle
cows.
is dangerous.
Oh yeah, the bulls and the cows are both dangerous.
No, Bullwinkle. Wasn't he a moose?
He was a Mountie. But they're the only deer species that's dangerous. All the other ones don't attack people. They run away from them for the most part. You have to like really fuck with an elk for it to stab you. Or a deer, like there's to be something you've done something horribly wrong. But if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time with a moose, like a moose with her cubs, and she just decides, or calves rather, to stomp you out.
This is a moot point. It's never going to happen.
Alaska moose attack.
Just never.
Driver prayed not to be killed during hour-long ordeal as animal trampled his dogs.
Okay, so
They're just.
you know,
My point is, they're the one deer species that will actually go after you.
Aren't we
the only one?
Aren't we profiling that one moose?
No, listen. There's a lot of them. I've seen them in real life. They don't run away from you. It's a totally different look.
Okay.
When you meet them in the woods, they look at you like this.
You sound like these people when they say, you know, they're so fatalistic. Back to our.
As he charged me, I emptied my gun into him, and he never stopped. This has been the most horrific past 24 hours of my life. So he emptied his gun into this moose, and the moose still trampled him for an hour.
I'm still rooting for the moose.
They're great. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying the honest characteristics of this animal are very different than other deer species.
You're saying don't have one as a pet.
I'm saying you got to mind your P's and Q's if you see a fucking moose. It's not like a deer.
Okay.
They'll kick your ass. I have a friend of mine who lives up there in BC. And he's a rancher. He's a really sweet guy. Very interesting guy. He was on his horse, and a cow moose started chasing him. He's running for his life while the moose is gaining on him. I go, what would happen if that moose got you? And he goes, if she had her calves, she might just stomp me to death.
Right. Well, but that's Mother Nature.
Yeah.
You know, instinct. And again, this is not an issue that's going to come up in my life.
It might.
Let me tell you.
It might. I don't want you to get cocky.
You seem obsessed with protecting me from death by moose, Joe. And I promise you, if it does happen, my last words will be, fuck, Rogan told me this would happen, and I was cocky that day in Austin, Texas. I should have listened to him. God damn it.
I just think if you find yourself in the woods, you should know this information.
Even that's not going to happen. And by the way, I wouldn't find myself in the woods for $1 zillion because that's where you get Lyme disease.
Oh, that's true.
And that really is a nightmare.
Oof. I had a friend on last week, Jim Miller, who battled with it. He didn't even know he had it because apparently 50% of the people test negative even though they have it. And it took him years and years of taking antibiotics just to get it out of his system.
Not to keep beating my horse about they don't know anything.
Yeah.
But there's one. They're really clueless.
It's a scary one.
It's more prevalent than we know.
Yes.
Because, again, misdiagnosed. And it's a sneaky little fucker that I've known people have had it. And the suffering is almost indescribable. And it moves around in the body. The symptoms change. You know, 1 week you have a burning in your head, and the next week your legs are sore, and it's just, and yeah, they don't really know how to attack it. Of course, they're going to throw antibiotics at it like they do everything. I guess sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know if you're familiar with the New York Times columnist Ross Douthat.
Did he get it?
Yeah, the way you said that. Yes, he got it and wrote a book about it. I think we're going to have him on very shortly to talk about it, and it's very interesting because he's a very conservative columnist, which is fine. I'm friendly with him, had him on the show a number of times. But his view on medicine, I think, was much more orthodox until he got this. And that's why I wanted to have him on, because I think he's preaching from my choir book now, because he's basically saying the stuff that I looked into that was supposedly the quackery stuff, like that actually worked better than the 15 doctors I had to go to. I mean, the whole book is about a multi-year nightmare he had trying to extirpate Lyme disease from his body, and of course because the doctors are clueless. Now again, am I saying this is because doctors are deliberately corrupt? No, I don't think they're making any money on Lyme disease. But they are locked into their rigid way of thinking, which may be part of the reason why they haven't made much progress. And again, part of it is just we don't understand that much about the human body. Shantix.
Yeah. I think as far as treatments of Lyme disease, one of the more critical aspects is to get treatment early. People that I know that have picked it,
of course,
that got Lyme disease and took the antibiotics, they kicked it and they were okay. But the guys that I know that didn't take any medication and they didn't know they had it, or the doctor didn't know the doctor didn't want to believe them, and they waited too long. They're the ones who had more problems.
Well, I always think of Steve Jobs, who said, he got pancreatic cancer, which is the worst kind. And he did a lot of,
juice cleanses and shit.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think, I may be wrong about this, but I do think I remember him saying toward the end, I wish I hadn't fucked around with it like that. I wish, if you, like, the holistic stuff is great as a preventative, but if you actually get it, sometimes you're going to have to let them. I mean, there's no good choices, but sometimes you have to go to the DEFCON 1 and hit it with the nuclear weapon or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think he regretted that. And I mean, that's not
that fucking sucks.
I'm not.
That's a terrible feeling to have.
Yeah.
To believe you bought into something that's not
Well,
legit.
and also, again, to the point of we don't know much, usually pancreatic is diabetics, it's because it's about that part of the body that processes sugar and so forth.
Isn't it connected to cigarette smoking as well?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Everything bad is. But, he was thin, Steve Jobs.
And he was apparently ate really healthy, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, no, we just don't know. I mean,
that's the genetic roll of the dice thing.
It's not just genetic. I think genetic,
environmental.
Also things like stress.
Mm-hmm.
Another big complaint I have with Western medicine is they absolutely don't give any thought to the mind-body connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real thing. It's not just, kumbaya bullshit. We can measure it in certain ways. I mean, the mind and the body do work in conjunction. Stress is definitely a factor. That's something that's coming out of your mind. When people get scared, they say, he went white. Why is that? Because the body, without you even knowing it, moved all the blood to your arms and your legs so you could run away and fight somebody. That's why your face went white. We don't need blood in our face right now.
Is that really what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. So your body allocates blood to the muscles?
As the body allocates everything, yes.
Wow.
Right.
I never thought of it that way.
And I'm just saying...
People see red, though.
And
don't they see red? They get angry?
I think that's just an expression. I don't think they actually are seeing red. But I think red...
like your face gets red, too, though.
Yeah.
A lot of times when people get mad, their face gets red. Like if you're thinking you're
that's
about to...
That's embarrassment, yes.
But like
but that's
anger.
probably because it's embarrassment, and the blood wants your body saying, "I want the blood where I'm thinking in my head
because I'm thinking so poorly that
yes,
my face is red.
that I'm embarrassed.
Ooh, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
I'm at the blackboard with an erection.
You might be right with that.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
You know,
that's interesting. Like that your face is red because you're embarrassed that you're upset.
Yeah.
I think there's that too.
I think people are saying, "What are you guys smoking today?"
Good stuff. Good stuff.
What are you talking
Good stuff.
about?
Stuff is rolled by the Comanches.
What?
Just kidding.
Oh. It's a good slogan, though.
Yeah, I'm
Rolled
sure they
by
had
the
good weed.
It doesn't mean anything, but I'm going to use it. Rolled by the Comanches.
Have you ever read anything about the Comanches, the people that used to live here? It's one of the wildest cultures of all the Native American tribes.
They lived here in Texas?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a fucking great book called Empire. What is it called? Empire of the Summer Moon? Empire of the Summer Moon. It's all about Texas and the Comanches in the 1800s. It's just an incredible group of Native Americans that figured out how to ride horses. They figured out how to raise horses the best. They were the best at like horse husbandry, and they had like tons of horses. And their empire consisted of horses, and they just owned the plains for like hundreds of years. It was an impassable country because they hadn't figured out anything other than muskets, and with bows and arrows, they were killing everybody. So nobody could settle out here.
Didn't every empire use horses? I mean,
no. Native Americans, until Europeans returned, didn't use horses.
But Alexander the Great did.
Yeah, but that's. So this is what happened. Horses used to be native to America. They used to have natural horses here, and they died off somehow. They don't know. But they do know they were reintroduced by Europeans. So Europeans that came over and dealt with people in North America and Mexico and a lot of Native Americans, they had never seen anybody on a horse before until the Europeans arrived. So then the Europeans there's a guy named Dan Flores who wrote a book about how Native Americans were probably on their way to extirpating the buffalo. Even if the Americans didn't come along and do that horrible market hunting shit, the Native Americans with a horse were so fucking effective that they were just wiping out as many buffalo as they wanted. Like they would have been able to do that too, because that was not a normal thing for a person to be on a horse until like whenever it was that the first Europeans arrived with them.
That certainly would be news to me.
So it's a fascinating article.
I mean, no, that the Indians were wiping out the buffalo.
No, they weren't. He was saying they were so effective at it that over time it was possible that they could do that.
I'm sure it's possible, but what we've always heard, again, I don't know anything because I know what I've been told, and I'm always questioning. But what I've always thought I knew about the Indians was that they lived lightly on the land. They didn't kill more than they needed to because they understood that it's in our long-term benefit to keep the buffalo herd alive.
They did for the most part.
And then men came along and just shot them for fun from the side of a train.
That's like definitely true, too.
Dick Cheney shooting birds that can't fly. It was that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And now, maybe there is some truth to both, but I would be very surprised to learn if the Indians were piggish like that.
That's not the point. That was not what I was saying.
I'm just.
No. You'll let me finish.
Okay.
What he was saying
I don't want to get you in trouble with the Indians.
No. Like there's more to it. What he was saying was that these people hadn't had horses until this point in time, and the reason why there was this amazing population of buffalo when they first got here, and there was millions and millions of buffalo. His theory is that this was because the Europeans gave diseases to the Native Americans during that same time period. So during that same time period, 90% of the Native Americans get wiped out by smallpox and all these crazy diseases.
Yes.
He's saying this is why hundreds of years later you have so many buffalo.
Right.
And he said if you had Native Americans who were effective hunters on horses, even without the horrible market hunting that killed them really quickly, he's like, over time, he probably would have killed at least a measurable amount of the buffalo, similar to what we did, but it would just take a lot longer. That was his theory. But it was mostly about how the Native Americans had died off from smallpox and how crazy it was, and that this led to this increase in this massive herd of buffalo. His theory was that that's not normal to have this many, and I'm definitely fucking this up and paraphrasing it, but it's a really good, what is it, like buffalo diplomacy, buffalo, it's Dan Flores.
Doesn't my T-shirt say Buffalo Soldier?
It does.
Bison ecology and bison diplomacy.
That's it. Thank you. See, it's fascinating stuff.
So, who do you like, Aztecs or Incas?
But I'd have to meet them. But the Aztecs, at least they built their own shit, or they had people do it for them. The Aztecs, whatever they were doing, they were making some wild stuff, man.
I always ask people that question because, it's like a Beatles Stones thing.
Oh, there's no good answer.
No, it's just like it depends
no
on your
bad
taste.
answer, I should say.
Like the Aztecs were very raw, whereas the Incas, every note was perfect. It's just your taste. Some of it was better live and in concert, and some of it was kind of like, did the Incas use a lot of studio tricks? Yeah, and it sounded fucking great.
The Incas did some wild shit.
Yeah, they both did. I mean, Mel Gibson's movie Apocalypto.
Yeah. Oh
which
my
is
God.
such a great movie.
Amazing.
And that was Aztecs, right?
No, that was the Mayans.
Oh, Mayans.
Yeah.
Right. I left them out.
Yeah, the Mayans, they also believe were wiped out by disease because Cabeza de Vaca talked about encountering them. They talked about the historical stories that people would tell about running into these people with these golden helmets, and it was all like this incredible civilization that existed. And the theory is that when people came back and it was all completely abandoned, there was no real theory until they started concentrating on the viruses and the different bugs that killed the Native Americans. Well, of course, they probably killed the Mayans too. They probably killed people every time they came through. They think they killed everybody in the Amazon. Do you know about that?
No.
There was Do you know that lost city of Z?
There's no moose in the Amazon, though,
No,
are there?
it's jaguars and shit. But did you ever read that book or hear about that movie, The Lost City of Z? It was all about a lost city in the Amazon.
Yes, it was
movie
that was like attempted to be made forever. One of those that was like in turnaround forever. Isn't that the one?
I'm not sure about the history of the movie, but the movie itself was about British explorers that make their way through the Amazon because there's supposed to be this lost city of golden statues and this incredible wealth and sophistication that exists in the Amazon. Well, everybody thought it was nonsense. They all thought it was just crazy myth and bullshit, but it's all just jungle. You could never have a city there. And then they realized like the jungle itself is man-made. A big part of the Amazon jungle itself was from human cultivation of very specific plants. One was like, what is it, the ice cream bean tree, and a few other ones. They're like plants that people planted back then 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 years ago, and they've overwhelmed this area of the world. It's amazing, and underneath it,
in a positive way.
Well, this is the point. The only reason why it happened is because European settlers came through and killed everybody. Everybody died from diseases. So there's these cities that could have held a fucking million people, and they're finding them through LiDAR. So they're flying over this area of the jungle with this light-penetrating laser shit, and they're seeing these grids and patterns and city streets, and it's all engulfed in the forest. The jungle just overwhelmed everything. But it was because the Europeans came through and gave everybody fucking smallpox.
Right.
It's wild.
Fucking Europeans.
I mean, that's really that's the real story of North America. It's like diseased people come here and kill off most folks.
Also, I mean, Apocalypto, besides being such a great chase movie, one of the greatest chase movies ever, right? And just
it's a great movie.
It is a great movie. I mean, Mel Gibson, for all his flaws, is an amazing filmmaker. I mean, he's done it over and over again. He's just, he just understands the medium of film.
Oh my God!
But I just thought it was interesting because. I'm sure the Indians, certainly did horrible crimes to them, and I'm sure their culture was in many ways superior. But he pointed out in that movie that just because you're, a Native American doesn't mean you weren't also like chopping heads off of people for religious ceremonies.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, one tribe was brutal to another tribe because we're humans. Humans are basically the same all over the world.
That's a big part of
all races. And I mean, that is more what we have in common is being human, and humans are still a very primitive species, very brutal, very savage, and that didn't just completely suspend itself with Indian culture.
100%. That's a big part of the story of the Comanche. Is how they would torture and
weren't they?
Mock. They were fucking horrible. They would cut while a guy was alive. They would cut his arms and legs off and then throw him on a bonfire so he would wiggle to death while burning alive with his arms and his legs just freshly cut off. I mean, they did wild shit to people.
I'd rather be skull fucked by a moose. I tell you, that's terrible.
Leave your fantasies out of this, sir.
I am not going to.
They were also just fascinating in the simplicity of their culture. It didn't have a lot of art. You know, it was really just about following buffalo herds around.
Spartan.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Warriors, just fierce warriors.
That's the Spartan. I mean, that's a word in the language, Spartan. It comes from the city in Greece.
Yeah.
They were the rival of Athens at the height of Greek culture in the 5th century BC, but they were just about, war and
raiding
no
and
art.
conquering.
Yeah. Well, no, they weren't. They were just. I don't think they were raiding and conquering.
Well, I'm sorry. That's the Comanche.
I think they were. I think they were fucking each other in the ranks, if I recall my Greek history. But that was to create a camaraderie in the armed services. I mean, I think they may have used. I mean, you can check me on your Mr. Google box, but I think that Spartans used homosexuality as a camaraderie building tool.
I bet a lot of people did back then. It's convenient. I mean, look, we know it happens in prison, right? It happens in prison. They make that choice. Well, I'm sure a lot of people.
Choice is a strong word for what happens in prison, Joe. I don't know. It's like
I think some of them must make a choice, and some of them it's against their will.
Right.
Right.
I think a lot of it is against.
Yeah, there's a lot, but I mean, if you talk to actual prisoners, it's not as much as you would think it is.
Do you remember the HBO series Oz?
Yes.
Did you watch that?
I watched it.
Fucking terrifying, and I couldn't. and I could not stop watching it.
Yeah, fuck that.
J.K. Simmons. That was the first time I ever saw him. He was on that show. He was a regular. He was the Nazi. Not the Nazi, a Nazi, like the lead Nazi. And what was so chilling was in the first episode, there's one guy in prison who, of course, we all HBO subscribers are watching and relating to because he's the regular guy. He's not a hardened criminal. He had a drunk driving thing and he killed a little girl. And now he's in prison.
Right.
And he's in like this is a
Supermax.
bad prison. And the J.K. Simmons comes up to him the first day and he's like, I know it can be rough in here, blah, blah, blah. And he totally has him snowed thinking he's a nice guy. You come on, I'll tell the guard. I know him. I'll bribe him. You can be my cellmate. Cut to, he's tattooing a swastika into his ass. And that's when I said to myself, I don't want to go to prison. Up until then it seemed no.
If you get that swastika lasered off your ass, so what do? Do you get it lasered off, or do you just not tell anybody?
Well, it's on your ass. Yeah, again, I would just never. Yeah, well, who's going to see your ass? I mean, get married, you have to tell one person. And even she probably doesn't see your ass a lot.
Even if you got it lasered off, what if it left like the faintest of scars?
Yeah.
Well, why do you have a scar and a swastika on your ass, Bill?
I would. Well, I'd say there's a story here. No, I would think what you would do is not get it lasered off. You would, add to it to make it. It's very easy to make a swastika into a square with lines in it, or a tic-tac-toe board. You're right.
Yeah, or maybe a dream catcher.
Right. But incorporate it into the middle of a larger painting. So now you don't look like you're a Nazi. You look like you're gay, with a flowery arrangement on your ass. That's what I would do.
That's probably the best
move. I don't want kids out there to take my advice. I'm not dispensing medical wisdom, kids.
I would say laser it off first and then see what's up. See if you got a scar. If you don't have a scar, just accept the lasering off. I don't know if lasering, but I think the tattooing itself leaves some kind of scar, right? They're digging in your ass.
Now, look at all your tattoos.
Yeah, I mean, they're scars. I mean, scars
what do you mean?
With ink in them. That's really what it is. I mean, you could actually see it.
Why would you do that to yourself? Well, of course you like it. I mean, but I mean, is it worth it? What is the reward to risk ratio there?
What's the risk?
The risk that you're injecting ink into your skin? That to me just on the surface of it doesn't sound like
it's not really injecting into your skin. It's leaving holes from the needle, and then the ink fills those holes.
It's still
it's permanently
It's-
embedded in your skin. It's
that
an art.
still sounds so.
Looks
I know.
beautiful,
I know.
doesn't it?
I know the art part.
Come on, bro.
It's still.
You want to get a sleeve? You know you do. That's Miyamoto Musashi. He's who wrote the Book of Five Rings. That's a famous Japanese samurai. Do you know who he is? He wrote an amazing book on strategy, and he was like an incredibly balanced guy in that he believed in poetry and calligraphy and creating art, but he was also the greatest samurai that ever lived. And the thing that he said was that you had to be all of those things. You had to be in balance, in full harmony, and by doing that, you had to be in touch with your artistic side, your creative side. And he killed 60 men in one-on-one battle with swords.
I can dig all that, but why does he need to be on your arm?
'Cause
That's my question.
So I read a book when I was like 16.
I know.
And
but
it was by an ancient
again,
samurai, and
but
I thought it was cool.
You're like doing my tattoo bit
like how it
for me.
looks.
You
I
can't,
am.
You can't just remember that?
No, this
my
is
joke.
why. This is,
I
you asked a
understand.
question. We're on a podcast.
I know. I'm just trying to. I mean, to me, this is more dangerous than the moose.
This is
It's
not.
like I know, but like it's not natural, and also it is ink under the skin. I mean, you can't tell me.
You know what else isn't natural?
It's-
cell phones. They're not
right.
natural either.
And that's why I never.
This is
hold-
art. You know, fucking millions of people have skin art.
I understand. That doesn't mean the millions of people do lots of stupid things. I mean, we were just talking about how many people are obese.
But you're
Yeah.
also talking about there's a certain amount of risk in life, and like
Right.
the risk of getting
I know.
a problem
This is
from a
just
tattoo. The only risk is bad art.
This is one I can avoid. It's like I was going to say before. People are so fatalistic that something I've heard so many times in my life when I try to talk to people about health and this, that, and they go, "Yeah, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow."
I know. It's
And I always think this is something I could 100% avoid. I feel I can just absolutely guarantee myself that I will not get hit by a bus or eaten by a moose or get a tattoo. I just play the odds. I do the things. I mean, this is not how Jesus made me. with tattoos.
I feel
on
like
me.
you need a whole Japanese bodysuit. You should go the whole other direction. Get one of them David Lee Roth deals.
What if
David Lee Roth has like he's got like a 3/4 sleeve suit, like a Japanese.
David Lee Roth?
Yeah. David Lee Roth got him a tap style in Japan, where they do it like the old school way. He got a lot of his tattoos done like traditional, super painful way.
You know, the one that blew my mind, and I love Ben Affleck, but he got that giant
He's got a phoenix on his back, right?
phoenix, and I love the such a funny comment that his ex-wife said when they asked her about it, because he had said something like, "This is a symbol of renewal, the phoenix rising from the ashes," and Jennifer Garner said, "I think in this analogy, I'm the ashes."
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, no, I mean that's
unusual.
That's a real.
What's the thing
That's a
below it?
commitment.
What is that red stuff? What is all that stuff? That's what's confusing.
Red stuff.
That stuff.
I mean, it's part of the art.
But what is that? Is that the tail? Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see what's going on. So that's the crazy long.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. It
There's
hooks
his
around.
head, and there's the
Got
wings,
it.
and it's got a big long
Yeah.
body and two like dinosaur arms, and
Interesting.
you know,
Well, I'm a big fan of phoenixes, but I can't say that's my favorite one.
well,
I've seen some dope images of phoenixes, but
I'm a big fan of Ben.
there's David Lee Roth. See, he's got this whole.
Oh wow, that's a horrible. It's a vest.
Yeah.
He's got a tattoo vest. That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. That is. Oh, is that what he looks like now?
That's what he looks like now.
Oh, he doesn't look healthy.
Well, he's an older fella.
I know, but
And
he
he's had a
looks,
hard life.
He looks like he should eat more. He should eat more.
You think so?
Yes, he looks too gaunt.
Maybe that's like his operable weight. See, all that shit that he's got on, that's all tap style. He had all that done in a very traditional way.
I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
like an old
I don't
school.
know what this adds to life. I really don't.
Makes you look hot.
I don't. I know a lot of people think that way, I guess.
I don't know. People like it or they don't like it. It's like, for me, nothing. There's no permanence. Is it permanently on my body until I die? Yeah, but I'm dying. We're all dying.
Why do you care if you look hot? You're married.
It's not that looking hot. I'm talking about him.
Oh,
I'm talking
him.
about David Lee Roth looks hot.
But why did you get the tattoos? You must think it looks.
I just like art, man. I like
Right.
skin art. And this guy, Aaron Della Vedova, is a good friend of mine, runs Guru Tattoo in San Diego.
Boy,
He's awesome. He did another friend of mine, Mark Beecher.
he must be a
Kickboxing
plug on
trainer.
your show like that. Must be worth millions of
He
dollars.
already can't get in on him.
Like
He's already got like
20 million people will hear that.
a gigantic waiting list.
Oh.
He's really good. But the point is that I was just always fascinated with tattoo art. I like it.
Yeah.
I like the way it looks on people. I like getting it.
Good.
It's like you have permanent art on you. Or you have like an interesting.
And getting back to our original
We can
starting
disagree.
point is
Exactly. Like
And-
I'm
and
not
it doesn't-
offended if someone doesn't like tattoos.
I'm not offended at almost
Yeah.
anything.
And I'm not offended if you make fun of it because it's funny.
No,
It's funny.
I'm not offended.
Yeah.
And it's the spice of life to know how
Exactly.
boring it would be to talk to ourselves.
Exactly.
You know,
We should all be able to have these kind of conversations
Right.
where we're not taking it
course.
personally if someone disagrees with
No.
something. It's so silly.
Exactly.
But part of what happened with it's the social media thing, man. I think that accentuated it,
Of course.
heavily.
Social media made everything worse and brings out the worst in people. I did a whole editorial one night about, I can't remember, we had a whole list of all the ways it makes you more of a dick. It makes you passive-aggressive, for
It can,
one.
yeah.
It definitely does.
It does for most people. I mean, it's avoidable, is what I'm saying. Like
It is, but people don't.
No,
I mean,
they don't. No.
They ghost. It's
Yeah.
very easy just to not answer, to ghost people, as opposed to just saying, "Oh, I met someone new.
Yeah.
We had a great time." Whatever it is, you know,
Right.
they just or what else does it? Oh, it makes you bullying.
There's a lot of that.
Easy to be more of a bully. Certainly makes you stupider because all the time people used to have, like to read a book at the end of the day, that went up in smoke because they're just scrolling through their
Yeah.
phone and playing stupid games and looking at pictures and Instagram. And I mean, it's the ultimate time suck, the way it sucks time all the time you would have to actually learn something. I feel like that was the sea change in this century, was when a whole generation was raised on the phone and social media. And I don't know if we're going to be able to reverse that or how we can ever really measure the damage it did.
Well, it stopped all social interaction in person that would ordinarily be something that, like, if you're having a conversation with a person, it's very rare that you're going to say something really rude to them in person.
Right.
But either through text messaging or
Right.
through direct messages or social media,
Yep.
people are they're so shitty with each other. And it's because you don't feel the repercussions. If I said something insulting to you, and then I saw the look in your face, like
Right.
it really hurt your feelings.
Correct.
It makes me feel bad.
Right.
It's natural.
Right.
We're social beings, and that social aspect of social media is completely eliminated because you're not experiencing the person in front of you. You're just saying something.
Oh, and also another one, makes you fake.
Yeah.
Fake. You can fake everything, and people faking their lives.
Yeah.
People finding it more important to look like they're having a good life and a good time than actually be having one.
Yeah.
That's a fucked up psychological state.
It's weird.
To be in. And like I've never dated from social media. I never would. I mean, the capacity people have to
Yeah.
be someone who they're not, even with the pictures.
Oh, sure.
You couldn't trust even the picture, let alone what they're saying about themselves. I mean, Tinder, I don't think was something that made people's lives. I mean, I'm sure there are Tinder marriages, but basically it's just a hookup thing, is it not? I mean,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that can't be good for long-term human relations.
It's too easy.
Too easy.
People could just get on an app and say they want
Right.
to fuck, and someone wants to meet
But
them.
I don't think
and they
this
can go
is,
meet these people.
I don't think this is really what most women ever wanted
No.
or still want. I don't think it's in their DNA to not be Tinder-like. They want tender, not Tinder. And I read an article about it. I'm not going to say I'm an expert. I've never been on Tinder. I wouldn't know what it looked like on an app if I saw it. But I read this article, I think it was in a Vanity Fair or something, and it described this girl who, does it. The guy's like, hey, what's up? And like, they meet, they fuck. She said she's getting dressed, and she turns around, and he's sitting on the bed on Tinder. So before he had got his clothes back on, he was back on the site, I guess.
That's crazy.
Well, it's sad. It's sad.
Well,
and
it's like a game too, right?
And I hope that girl never did it again on Tinder, and I bet you she didn't, because,
Oof.
I mean, if you give men the opportunity to be that disposable, they probably will, a lot of them. I mean, men are, especially young men, are feral creatures. They're a moose in the street.
But do you think that those should be, obviously they should be legal, right? You should be able to meet people online. So how do you avoid it becoming something?
Oh,
where
I'm
people
not saying not illegal.
Maybe you only let a guy go on like one date a week. Like you have a limit, like give you a limit of gigabytes you can upload. You got a limit of one date a week from it.
No, this is not something that can be solved with
It can't
government
be, right?
regulations, and we're not saying that.
But it becomes, I think, if you were using any social media where you're doing something and something is happening back. You say something, someone responds. You argue on Twitter, someone argues back. You're playing a game. It's not just as simple as you're having a conversation about something. You're also trying to win this weird social media game. And I think that can apply to dating. I think it can apply to gambling. I think there's a lot of people that are like heavy-duty gambling online now because it's exciting, right?
But another bad thing that social media type stuff and the phone has done is atrophied people's social skills.
Right.
I talked to some girl, I don't know where it was, a long time ago, maybe 5-6 years ago. I remember she was saying to me, I said, "You ever been on Tinder?" She said, I tried it a couple of times, but, excuse me, it's always like I get on and, oh, okay, there's a guy. He looks kind of cute. He doesn't seem like a psycho. And then apparently if you match with each other, then you can start messaging, right? So the guy she'd say, "Hi, how you doing?" And "What's up?" I'm good. How are you doing tonight? What's up? Like they could not even make a conversation over texting. It was just like, want to hook up? And women need a little courting and deserve it, and it's fun. That's part of the fun.
Do you think people will change because of this?
I think they have changed.
Do you think? Yeah.
I'm telling you, I don't think men know how to do it anymore. And also, people, that younger generation, that Gen Z generation, finds it almost aggressive, too aggressive, to be approached in person.
Ooh.
You have to do it over social media. They feel safer that way. Where if some guy comes up to you right across the room, "Hi, I'm Brad Handsome, and I saw you from across the room." Like, that's a little too like, ooh, you should give me a trigger warning. If you were actually going to approach me in person, be a normal person and text me first so I know it's coming.
Yeah.
What a generation of frail people. That's not good for the country or them.
Yeah, and trying to be so sensitive, we've created people that need that sensitivity. And I think there's a balancing act that's being missed on people that hate people's descriptions of reality that are uncomfortable to them. Like, that's important. It's important to know. This idea that the truth is shameful. You're shaming people with the truth. Like, stop it.
Not with me, Joe.
No, not with you.
Not with me and not with you.
No, but it's impossible to find on anything that's corporate sponsored. It's so hard. Like when you watch any kind of television show where they're giving opinions and they're giving it in an environment where there's a giant group of people behind the scenes and executives and producers, it's very hard to just talk shit. Like, look what happened to Whoopi. All she did was have an opinion on the Holocaust where white people were killing white people. And maybe she phrased it in a way that wasn't the best, or maybe if you gave her a chance to illuminate it better upon further consideration, she would have had another. But you're thinking in real time. You're thinking out. And so that one thing that she said where you could say, oh, I could see where other people could see it wrong, or that or what I was saying was wrong, or insensitive, or whatever it was. But people still, you have to take off work. You have to stop working. But her whole working is talking shit, right? I mean, those girls are sitting around, they're talking about stuff. That's their work.
I defended her.
Yeah, me too.
Even though I thought her statement was very wrong and is very wrong.
It's incorrect.
And she had just attacked me the week before about COVID, so I had every reason to get back at her, but I didn't.
Good for you.
Because
good for you.
Well, the principle is most important.
Yes.
But
good for you. Still,
Yeah.
We need more of that.
What I said about it was, you can't expect to have treated black people the way white people have treated them in this country for all these centuries, and have them have the same opinion on everything.
It's a good point.
It's a very different opinion. I don't agree with it. I don't even think it's factually accurate. I know it's not. But she has the right to express it, and she shouldn't have to be punished for it. And I totally understand why she might feel that way. Because if I had had that background, I might feel that way. And you have to allow that in society. That should be something that the woke are championing. You would think they
For
would.
sure.
You'd think they would understand that, since they're always making everything about race. And a lot of America is about race. And certainly you're just going to come up with a very different point of view.
And there should be
if you're a black person of her age, especially
Yes.
in this country. And so, you're right. To make someone sit home, it's just
silly.
It's just gross.
Also,
just fucking gross.
There should be that opportunity to confront that argument, or maybe she would have adjusted it in real time if someone confronted her on it, who had more information, someone she respected.
Or just
who the
say,
fuck knows? It's part
I'm not
of
there.
thinking.
Yeah, just say, I'm not there with you on that. I don't
Right.
like tattoos.
Right.
So what? Move on. Next.
But you're asking someone to have a conversation in real time. Like, you're asking them to have opinions on things that maybe they didn't even think they were going to discuss. Like, maybe she didn't know that this is what they were going to talk about.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how they're doing it, but if they're doing it like a real conversation, I would assume a lot of it is just free flow.
Yes, of course it is.
Of course, right?
You've seen The View.
So you got to let let them do it. Like,
Right.
that's what they're doing.
What if I have to pee?
You go pee.
Right now?
Yeah, we'll pause. We'll be right back. Bill Maher has to pee. Bill Maher, I was way too high about 20 minutes ago, so disregard everything I said. I'm back now. Whew. Forgot
Don't
how
worry,
strong that
Joe.
shit is.
I know.
I was in the middle of some nonsensical
I know the feeling.
explanation of how I felt about The View.
Oh.
I was like, where
No,
am I going with
Actually,
that?
you were right on about that.
Yeah. No, I definitely was in that way. It's just, I think that's one of the cool things about you being able to do your show. It's clear that you can do your show and you can speak your mind about things in a way that is very uncommon in late night talk shows.
Oh.
It's very uncommon.
Well, I mean, first of all, like we were saying before about the difference between when I started, when you couldn't be political or they didn't want you to, and I was like, let's give it a shot. Let's see if, even if people disagree with me, they still might watch it. Mm-hmm. Versus now, where you better toe the line.
Yeah.
And so the politics comes first and the comedy comes second, which is really not the way it should be. And, when you see, like if there's somebody who announces they're gay on TV, which is great. I'm so glad that people can do that. I applaud with you. But and then they're like, well, that was very brave. It's brave when people boo at you. when you announce something and everyone erupts in applause, that's not brave, right? I mean, I'm glad it can happen in America. I'm glad there's this level of acceptance. But, I mean, the audience acts like it's like, great, okay, you're gay. It's fantastic. I'm happy for you. But they act like it's some sort of achievement. And I guess it's some kind of it can be an achievement to come out. But again, to do something in front of an audience that is adoring you for it, good. I'm glad it's happening. But it's just like the audience feels like, I'm such a good person because I'm applauding a person who announced they're gay. That makes me a good person. And there's that feeling I feel like in that kind of audience that they're playing to, that makes it hard to do comedy because that's a very politically correct mindset.
Yeah, it really is. It's very difficult to have that kind of a mindset and mock things because everything you're mocking becomes a victim. So it's like a real problem with comedy. Because when you're mocking things, you're an ableist if you mock a stupid person, right? You're an ableist. because you're okay and this person's fucked up.
Right.
Ugh.
But that is stupid.
That's
In
yeah.
itself, it's stupid.
The problem is like it's the enemy of comedy. That kind of thinking.
Only a stupid person would think that wasn't stupid.
But it's always very weird when people want to control the way people think and speak, and that's a thing that we've always been very nervous about throughout history. You know, whenever in history, whenever dissent against the king was you could get killed, right?
Yeah. Well,
and
sure.
everybody was very careful about what they said, right? Because if you said the wrong thing, they'd cut your fucking head off. And that's still the case in some parts of the world.
Yes, not just the king.
That's where it always goes. That's where it always goes.
Right.
It always goes to, you shut the fuck up or I'll kill you. It always goes there.
Yes. I mean, Stalin had a famous slogan, no person, no problem, which Saddam Hussein thought was great and adopted it in his country. Like if there's a problem with this person and he disappears, Putin loves to push people out windows and poison them. No person, no problem. I mean, it is the easiest way to solve a problem. It's not the right way. I don't care who knows it. I don't think that's the right way to do it. But yes, I mean, stopping people from talking. Now, of course, in this country now, we have lots of ways to stop people from talking short of killing them and pushing them out of windows and stuff. But, I mean, a lot of people would say, I would be one of them, that, you know, cancel culture and intimidating people and stamping out thought that isn't, you know, our friend Elon Musk getting into Twitter, I think, is about that. Is about somebody saying, you know, it wasn't cool that they didn't allow the lab leak theory to be talked about for months. You couldn't even mention it. And that is certainly something that was open to question. I mean, it was like, to me, the very kind of issue that if Twitter was really doing the job it should, would be a healthy forum for people to go back and forth and say, well, here's why I think COVID probably came from bats, because A, B, and C. And then, well, but, you know, there was this lab in Wuhan that was studying coronaviruses and somebody could have walked out with it on their shoe. Can't we even look into that? For Twitter to take that off, that, to me, was a huge red flag.
It's crazy. It was crazy because it wasn't resolved. It just wasn't resolved. It wasn't resolved amongst virologists.
No,
it wasn't resolved amongst. There was no way they could know.
Even the Biden administration admits that.
Yeah.
They say, yeah, it's absolutely a possibility. I know Redfield, the former head of the CDC, firmly believes it was in a lab. But again, that becomes the conservative view.
Yeah.
For what fucking reason? Why would I can't even follow the logic of why we pick. Okay, if you think it came from the wet markets, you're a Democrat. And if you think it came out of the lab, you're a Republican? It's like, what the fuck does that have to do with Republican or Democrat?
It's the same as everything. It's just fucking pure tribalism. The Democrats that do think it came out of a lab tell you like this. They tell you like this.
Really?
It came out of a lab.
Really?
Yeah, they're
It's
careful.
that
They cover
toxic?
the mic on their phones. Yeah.
It's that toxic.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
See,
Not as much now. I think it's one of those things that's been accepted because there's been New York Times articles on it. There's been a lot of like people cover of Newsweek. Remember?
Well, I think this probably comes from the fact that somebody thought that it was racist to think that it came from the lab. Like that was
the lab that the white people funded.
The lab, this high-tech lab. It seems it would be much more racist to think it came out of eating that primitive, fucking crazy food that you're eating in the wet market. You're eating the chicken of the cave, as they called it in Anchorman 2, bats. So, you know, it's just silly. It's just silly. It's a scientific issue. It should have no political dimension at all.
Yeah, I mean, if it was the other way, like if it purely, absolutely came, if all the evidence was pointing that it came from an animal, and then someone was just like coming up with this idea that it came from a lab, you'd go, what the fuck are you talking about? You'd want to go look at that. Like, what are you talking about? Tell me what you're saying. Show me this nonsense. But because it's the other way, it's like, what are you talking about? It came from a lab? No, it's everyone saying it came from a lab now. A lot of people are saying it came from a lab. Maybe it came from a lab. I'm not saying they're right, but I'm saying that if you don't talk about it, something crazy's going on. Because either you want to look at things for what they really are, or you have this ideological like box that your ideas have to live in. And if you say it came from a lab, you're a Trump supporter. You hate democracy, you hate gays. Like you can like stuff it in a box like that. It gets weird with certain subjects.
Yeah, I mean, this one got somehow balled up with anti-Asian racism. That now Trump, of course, always never finds any issue that he can't make worse. I mean, he saw an opportunity here, as he usually does, to cater, I think, and pander to his base, some of whom definitely are racist, and some of whom definitely like it when he does things like that. But I don't have any objection to calling it the Wuhan virus, because every virus has been named after the place it came from. I mean, you can't almost not name a virus that is not named after where it came from. Ebola and Nile River and,
Spanish flu.
MERS is Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome. I mean, it's not everything is about racism. I mean, that's again one of those common sense things, that it's not a Republican point of view. It's just that's the world. It's not everything is racial.
Yeah.
It's a serious issue, of course, still in America. It's America's biggest sin ever in our history, but it's not everything.
You know what I think is happening? I think everything is getting better, but it gets better like a wave. It gets really fucked up, and then it centers out in a better, more reasonable place. And people get really crazy about, sexual determination, your gender, or sexual orientation, gay or straight. People get really crazy about it, and then I think it's eventually going to settle down and just be everybody just accepts everything. Just be who you are. Nobody gives a fuck anymore. All of the discrimination about anything other than who you actually are is ridiculous.
You think that's going to happen?
It's getting better than it used to be, right? It's like humanity keeps getting more and more accepting. For the most part, there's resistance to it, but for the most part, people are way more accepting about alternative lifestyles today. Like gay people, gay people get married. The way we look at it's differently. It's different than people who lived in the 50s.
Yes,
and it keeps getting better, right?
And that's great.
But I think all of this, whether it's racism or homophobia or any real fear of people getting latched into a toxic mindset, the reason why they have it is because they're recognizing that everything does kind of do this. It swings back and forth, and it's getting better, but it doesn't get better in a clean delineation. It's not like all of a sudden everybody's good. It's like they're bad and they're good and they're better, and over 100 years we figure shit out. That seems to be the pattern of humans.
We overreact, especially in America.
Yeah.
The pendulum always never lands in the middle.
It's also hard to tell who's right. Are they right? Are they right? Who's right? Some people are very compelling and they're wrong. They have compelling arguments, but they're wrong. And you get sucked into that like shit.
And I don't trust anything. I mean, whatever I'm told, I'm like, I'm thinking this is probably half the story. And if I talk to someone on the other side, they'll have, so many times I get some information. A lot of people send me information or tell me things. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm definitely not going to say this until I run it by the research department at my show. Yeah. And I have some pretty brilliant guys and women who that's what they do. They check shit out.
Do you ever have one that's on the borderline where you're like, how much of this is real and how much of this is horseshit?
Yeah.
And you don't know what to do with it?
I still don't. We just talked about the one with the what's in the vaccine. Polyethylene,
whatever the fuck it is. Yeah,
I don't.
That shit. I don't know if that's real.
No.
Do we find out if that's real?
It's.
Did we ever find out if that stuff is actually in the vaccine? Because Aaron Rodgers said that he was allergic to a thing. We assumed it was that thing.
I don't think there's an ingredient list anywhere to find what's in the vaccine.
Really?
I think we've looked before.
There should be, and I think there is. I think they put one out. I just don't know if I trust it.
Could you just Google, is that stuff in vaccines? Whatever the fuck it's called.
Is that stuff.
That bad stuff. That bad for some people. That's the problem too, right? The biological variability of human beings. Like things that will really fuck some people up have zero effect on other people. It's weird. We're not the same thing. It's like a one-size-fits-all approach to medicine is just as crazy as clothes.
That's why I keep saying, like, I'm glad we have the vaccine.
Yes.
And it is appropriate for lots of people.
Agreed.
It's very
Yes.
necessary. And it
Recommended.
Will stop you from dying. But don't point to me or any particular person and say, well, you know, you have a different approach and you talk to different doctors and you have different point of view. This is the most personal thing in the world is my own health. What the fuck was that all about when we went through the if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor? Remember that?
Yeah.
It was the biggest political issue. That Obama was not completely honest about that. It turned out to be only about 2% of the people who didn't get to keep their doctor. But the whole point of if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor is I get to take the advice of my doctor. I know doctors who are dissenting of opinion about everything that's gone on with COVID. I want to keep my doctor.
Yeah.
And there's no point in keeping them unless I can listen to them. I get my information from lots of different people. And by the way, Dr. Google.
Yeah.
It's not an insult to doctors that there's Dr. Google. They don't like it that there is someone who they can be checked against. You know, and of course it's all how good a researcher you are. I mean, I have a researcher who does nothing but medical research for me. I feel like it's pennies on the dollar to pay for somebody to do that at my age.
That's such a baller move. I have a medical researcher.
Right. It is.
That's a great move.
And a smart one.
That's a good
pennies on the dollar. Because what could be more valuable than
getting someone to research
medical
stuff and know exactly what you're saying.
Medical information. And, of course, doctors themselves disagree. Mm-hmm. That's why I have her doing it, because it's like sometimes I need, okay, you got to referee this. Yeah. Because what do doctors always say? What do doctors always say when you have anything wrong with you that's more complicated than a fucking broken arm? Get a second opinion.
Yeah.
Which tells you, A, it's an opinion. It's not a fact. It's an opinion. We're all just guessing here. And you need a second one.
Yeah.
And it hardly ever matches the first. So they're all guessing.
There's definitely an element of guessing.
So,
you know,
it's the major part of it is guessing, especially with Lyme disease. You think that's just a guess? What are we going to? They don't know how to fix it. They don't know how to fix it,
but they know one of the effective treatments for a lot of people is heavy dose of antibiotics right away. And the people that I know that have recovered, that's what they've done.
Yeah, I agree. They know that. That's not really helpful if you get it too late or you're one of those people who doesn't work on, and maybe it'll come back in 10 years, and you don't know. Usually, antibiotics don't usually kill everything that they're supposed to kill. They kill enough to keep your body able to keep it in check. It's like the police don't kill every criminal. They just
Jesus.
It's not the purge.
Right.
You know that you take antibiotics and whatever is in you that's not good, it'll kill it usually. I mean, it usually does it by competing with food. Like that's why when you take antibiotics, you kill the good bacteria, the bad bacteria, and the fungus proliferate because you have their food supply. You know, you've helped them.
But in 2022, it's the only way to deal with some diseases. Like some ailments, you have to take it.
Of course. I'm not against. I'm
it's
thrilled.
Like the Steve Jobs thing we were talking about earlier.
No,
it's very similar, right?
Believe me, one of the things I'm worried about is living in a post-antibiotic world because we are rapidly approaching that.
Right.
Because the antibiotics, because of overuse, don't work as much as they used to, and the pharmaceutical companies don't put money into researching new ones because there's no money in it. They don't want you on antibiotics because you take them for a week. They want you on the shit that you have to take forever.
Do you really think it's a conspiracy to not develop good antibiotics?
It's not a conspiracy. It's just where the bottom line is.
That's true, but if it becomes something that, like, do you know anybody who had MRSA?
MRSA, sure.
It's a scary one, right?
Absolutely.
I have friends who were really young and healthy, and they got MRSA, and one of them was in the hospital for like a month. It was very touch and go, very dangerous.
I'd be worried about it if I were you, because you're probably in locker rooms with other like weightlifters, and isn't that where you get it? Taking showers with other men.
I think people get it from a bunch of different kinds of infections, but sometimes they get it, unfortunately, in hospitals.
Yes,
Sometimes they get it, and
absolutely.
they might have actually had it on their skin. It's like,
But I think locker rooms
the
are also
staph infection is on your skin. I think
Right.
maybe locker rooms for staph. Yeah,
Right.
it's probably pretty common. I know it's common in some jiu-jitsu gyms.
Yeah, I would never.
I've had it. I've had staph.
Oh, you have?
I've had it twice.
Wow. See,
Yeah.
That's why I don't go to locker rooms or woods
Yeah.
or moose farms.
I get it,
just-
man. But you know, people that like jiu-jitsu, they just accept it as part of the risk of doing it.
And what, you took antibiotics to
Yeah, I
get
took antibiotics. It was wild, though. I didn't even know I had it. I had shorts on. My friend Tate looked over at my calf, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on with your calf?" And I go, "What's going on with my calf?" And there's like these little red dots. He goes, "Dude, get that looked at." He goes, "That looks like staph." I go, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I went right to the doctor. The doctor goes, "Yep, that looks like staph." Took a little. It just looked like zits on my leg. The doctor took a sample of it just in case, and then they were run the sample, but she was 99% sure it was staph. And so she immediately got me on a high dose of antibiotics. And it killed it. But it was a wild feeling while I was killing. I was like, whoa. Like, those antibiotics wreck you. Or wreck me, at least. I
They
took them
do.
and I was like, holy
Of course.
shit. Imagine being on this all the time.
Yes.
Holy fuck.
Oh, they can just really destroy you.
I felt so weak and tired. I was just like, ugh. I had no energy to do anything while my body is like fighting
Right.
off this stuff.
Well, it's right in the name, antibiotic. I
Yeah.
mean, it's anti-life. I mean, that's
Right,
And,
right,
and again, not to keep coming back to the point that they don't know a hell of a lot, but I assume in the future they will have something better than the general theory of if there's something in you that's bad, we kill everything.
Torch the fields. Yeah.
You know, just
Well, it's interesting, these things that they're developing, these sort of little nanobots. Have you seen any of that stuff?
I've
they're
read
doing?
about it, yeah.
That's really fascinating because if they could get that to work, you could target individual problems. They could target things, like maybe even target tumors. Like they could send
Right.
it down to whatever that cancer tissue is. And
I mean, they've been talking about that forever, and I'm sure they're working on it. I'm sure people way smarter than us
I'm sure.
have devoted their lives, and I appreciate that. But the bottom line is we're still not there.
No.
I mean, the bottom line is if you get a cancer diagnosis, I mean, it's not an immediate death sentence, depending on where and what it is and a lot of other different factors. But it's not good news.
It's not good news.
And it's not something that they can just say to you, oh, we know exactly why you got it, and we know exactly what to do to take it out completely.
Mm-hmm.
That world we don't exist in yet. And until we do, don't look at me with the just do what we say look. I'm just you're just not there.
Is that where you draw the line? Tumors? That's it. When
draw
they
the
figure
line
out
way-
tumors.
I draw the line
I mean, what
way
kind of a
before
world
that.
where do you ever think we're going to live in a world with no diseases and no issues, or do you think it's just going to be an ease of fixing those things? Have you thought about that,
well,
like through CRISPR and all these
yeah.
gene editing?
Well, I will be. I have 34 years before I'm 100.
Whoa, that's wild.
So.
It's wild to say it that way.
So
That's
And I
wild.
feel like, people live to 100. It's actually more common than ever.
Yeah.
Some people would say it's actually the normal human lifespan because there are those blue zones in the world where
Mm-hmm.
there are sections of the world where people normally, I mean, routinely,
Yep.
the whole community, that's about the average lifespan. We probably live less because we have bad habits. But if you live a healthy life, you probably can live to 100. So my thing is, okay, they got like 34 years to figure out mortality. That's a long time. Ray Kurzweil says the solidarity begins in like 6 years from now, 2028. He said when man and machine become fully integrated with each other, I think that's part of the solution.
Yep.
As long as they can keep your brain and your dick alive, I'm good. The rest of it can all be replaced. They can fucking tattoo it if they want. I just want those parts that are wearing out, and the internal organs, of course, also. I mean, they must be, have a lot of mileage on them. And of course, we all wonder if what we did as foolish youths how much that's affecting us now. I smoked for 20 years. I mean, I'm sorry I did. It was stupid. I quit at 40. But, is that going to come back and haunt me?
I think the good news about cigarette smoking and cancer is the risks are greatly diminished within a certain period of time after quitting. Like it's one of those things where they say the way your body turns it around is actually pretty good, as opposed to like some different kinds of irritations. But if you could just quit in time.
Do you think smoking a joint is bad for us?
It's not as bad. It's a
Not,
different
of
thing.
course it's not as bad,
It's
but do you think it's
probably-
bad at all? I mean, it's smoke in your lungs.
It is smoke in your lungs, but isn't the smoke of one thing very dissimilar to the smoke of another? Like steam is like people like steam, right? They like a hot steam room. They like to breathe that in. We don't think that there's anything dangerous about that. Cigarettes are very different than marijuana. It's very different in the chemical profile. It's very different in the way it makes your body react. All the different shit in it. I don't know a lot of people that have like heavy lung problems from smoking joints, but I believe they're probably real. But like to compare them for whatever reason doesn't make any sense because the people that smoke cigarettes, a lot of them have problems.
Oh, of course.
It's
I
like
mean, cigarettes,
real common to hear about
there's
cancer.
like 200 different types of carcinogens in a cigarette. It's
You don't-
all poison.
You don't hear about that from weed people,
No.
like heavy weed smokers. I
No,
know
but you
people
never
smoke-
know. I mean, are we getting the
not-
butane when the
Yeah,
you
for
know? I
sure.
mean, there's lots of stuff that we.
It's not the best.
No.
No, it's not the best thing for you.
It's not. It's not health food. I mean, I've had
Yeah.
I've had hippies try to tell me it's actually beneficial. That it's coating your lungs with the turpentines or terrapins or whatever I don't know.
They say it's
Todd
protective.
McCormick would know the answer to
Yes.
that. Those. My eyes glaze over whenever I've heard it a billion times. All the different things about pot and
Hippies
scientific.
go so hard for weed.
So hard, and it's
Yeah.
like, you know what? I just drug culture. I'm not into the culture. I just like the drugs. Okay, the culture I could live without, and the
Isn't that the case with almost everything? Like the culture of the thing. Sometimes people connect themselves to cultures of things.
well, I
You know,
mean,
whether it's drug culture or whether it's political culture, it's like people
certainly
looking for
drug users
Yeah.
love to play with drugs. I mean, when you're into a certain drug, very often so much of your life revolves around with getting it, preparing it,
Yeah.
relighting it, redoing it, something. It's just it's like, I must say, again, I'm kind of like patting myself on the back for my pot use in life, but I used pot wisely. Like I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be talking to Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience if it wasn't for marijuana. I'd be probably selling shoes in New Jersey or something. I mean, I try to get something out of it every time I smoke. I don't just smoke and like zone out and watch a movie.
Right.
I smoke and like write something, or I mean, it's to me, it's a very productive experience. So if it has taken away some of my health, I'm willing to accept that trade-off. Whereas cigarettes did nothing but make me unhealthy. They did nothing that made me better, smarter, cooler. Like you think you are when you're 20 and you first light a cigarette. You think, oh, that's cool, and it's not. It's just stupid. You're just, and of course it's not easy to start a cigarette habit. You have to really insist. Your body, of course, hates it. It's disgusting.
That's such a good point.
And you just have to like insist. Same with liquor. It's just It's disgusting.
Even
have
the best.
You have to make yourself get used to these. Coffee
Yeah.
doesn't really taste good to a child, right?
It's so true. There's so many
Okay.
things that are like that you
All
have
right.
to force yourself into enjoying.
Joe, I have to catch a plane.
Dude, you got to catch a plane. Listen, it's been a lot of fun, Bill.
So much
I really
fun.
enjoyed it very much.
The only reason I'm bowing out is because I'm.
Listen,
I
it's an
gotta
honor.
get back to-
I'm very excited that you're in the podcast realm. So
Thank
tell
you.
people how to get yours. And
Well,
where
that's
to go.
right. I'm such a bad plugger of my own shit. Club Random. And hopefully you'll be in LA sometime and do it.
I would love
because
to
we'd
do it.
have
I'd
an
love to do it.
Amazing time.
Yeah.
Just like we did today.
I'm sure. I always
And-
enjoy talking to you, Matt. Whoa, what the fuck, Jamie? What are you doing?
Wait,
Tears for Fears waiting.
Jesus fucking
Go
Christ.
What the
Just
hell
let me
was
get
that?
my
Oh,
plugs in.
This is
Okay.
it. Oh, it's Club Random. That's it right
that's
there.
what it looks
That's
like.
what it- Oh, that's
There's-
cool.
There's my Club Random.
Look at you, bro. It's
there's
like a
the
fucking
Bella.
regular podcast studio that Red Band would design.
Yes.
Look
it's-
with the lights moving around.
Yeah.
That's a Red Band move.
It's a club, and
That's nice.
It's I mean, wherever you get podcasts. I mean,
Okay.
it's like
Apple,
yes,
Spotify, all that jazz.
right.
Okay.
I don't know, but Yeah, Spotify owns your ass, but I don't. I guess they are. Are you on Spotify?
Yeah.
If they don't own, okay. So I guess
Well,
you get it there.
I'm sure they uploaded your stuff.
I'm sure
to
they
Spotify.
do because it went to 1 on Apple the first
That's
week
fantastic.
when we had Quentin Tarantino on.
Right.
We've got but I also have a stand-up special on HBO that starts Friday, so that's going to be. I'm very excited about that. Called
Beautiful.
Adulting. And
Will that also be on HBO? What is it, Max?
yeah,
is that
I'm
what
sure.
the thing is?
I'm sure. If I
Did it used to be Plus and now it's Max? Is that
I
what it
think
is?
that's right. Yes.
Something like that. The HBO app, whatever it is.
Does he look like Alec Baldwin, or am
No,
I?
not at all.
He kinda
You
does.
got
Am
way
I-
too high.
Am I
You got way too
he
high.
Kind
You
of
think
does. He
That's the
looks
first
like
one
a
I
young Alec Baldwin.
Jamie, put a camera on yourself.
I
real
don't.
quick.
I don't trust him.
Okay, what the fuck? What the
Okay.
fuck?
I don't think
that
so.
does not look
I'm the
anything
first.
like
today,
that.
at least.
I'm first guy to say that.
You're too high.
Okay.
We're going to have to end this for your own good. We've already said a bunch of nonsense,
All right.
ladies and gentlemen.
Congratulations
Thank you,
on
brother.
being the king, Joe.
Thank you, sir.
Everyone's
Appreciate it.
gunning for you,
Oh,
but we'll
unfortunate.
never get there.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Ah,
and
pleasure.
Good luck with your podcast.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to being on it.
Appreciate
and bye, everybody.